Okay, so this is going to be recorded, which is the main reason we're doing it, because it'll end up on YouTube.
Oh, so the whole, it's actually being videoed.
It's being videoed.
Wow.
And people can join as they like.
What does that mean?
People from outside can just
can
log on and yeah.
Oh wow.
So maybe I'll just give you a little intro, since we are broadcasting live at the moment.
I'll just leave these.
You want to pass them out?
So I gave everyone who's here. If people come in, you can use. So we have 40 minutes, 50 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adam Jacobs, and I am the managing director of the Aish Center. It's a great honor to be here with you all today. We have a great lineup of people sharing ideas and thoughts about the time period that we're in, about this holiday, about finding light within darkness, which I believe is the true message of Tisha B'Av. Yet we know that the times that we live in currently are dark in many ways, and in some ways seem darker than they did just a few years ago. And so the purpose of this program and the panel is to look deeply within the difficulty and to see resolution. And so we brought in somebody who knows a lot about resolution to begin with, how to take warring parties and to make peace between them, which is of course one way of unleashing the light within the dark. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Gary Tolchinsky, who's going to speak to us about beyond blame, moving past resentment to live a more peaceful life.
Okay, thanks for everyone who came. Basically, if the information here is a website called jewishspiritualresponse.org, and some of it's from that site, which I helped to create basically as a response to some of the problems that Jewish people face today, whether it's Iran, whether it's boycotts, whatever. There's a lot of focus on the military and political dimensions of those things, which are important and real. But ultimately, this holiday of Tisha B'Av focuses on the idea that the ultimate outcome of the Jewish people and our safety, both here and in Israel, is based on our spiritual perspective on life. As the quote on the top of the page says, the ultimate victory will not be the one with the most powerful weapons, it will be the one with the most powerful spiritual vision, from Rabbi Simon Jacobson. And so two of the ways which we can do that are first connecting to our Jewish identity, which there's tons of stuff online. Aish.com has many, many articles. And also from getting along with our fellow human being, but particularly our fellow Jewish person who we're sort of like in the same family. And the second temple, which we still have not been rebuilt, is related to this idea of having groundless hatred for another person. And one of the ways we can correct that is, Ralph Cook said, we can have groundless love for another person. That may be a very high ideal, so we start with getting rid of the groundless hatred. And one of the ways that that causes hatred is when we have someone who's wronged us, and we blame that person for the problem that we're facing. And it could be that they hurt us monetarily. Let's say they accidentally, we had a vase or something that was very expensive and they dropped it. Totally innocently, but they're the person who's the source of that broken vase. It could be someone who said an offhand comment that they didn't mean to be pejorative, but they kind of ruined the night for you. You were at a party and they said something that maybe wasn't so positive to you and it hurt you, or they just looked past you. They didn't seem to see you at this event and you feel ignored and demeaned in some way. So you blame them on sort of a psychological level for the problem you have. So the title of the class, Beyond Blame, which is It's not my title. There are a couple of books that I saw with it, but I like the title, so I went with it. Is the idea that when we're stuck in blame, even though it can be justified, it ultimately is going to be not worth the cost that it takes to keep that blame within us. So the word beyond blame is that even if initially our response is justifiably to say, you're the person responsible for this harm done to me, ultimately we have to move past that to not only get along with the other person, but to create a better solution to whatever caused the blame, if there is one, and to live a life. Because if we get caught in blame, you can be 100% right, but where do we end up? We get stuck in blame for when we should be living our lives. So the handout has a few, it's basically about 3 or 4 pages on the subject of blame. Then there's a sort of a list of strategies to reduce blame, and those strategies are explored more deeply in an article which follows that, 10 Affirmations for a Peaceful Year, which I wrote previously. And again, some of the articles and materials, if you are on jewishspiritualresponse.org. Last plug for the group. And we have about 45 minutes, so we'll start. The cover page says there are 4 caveats to the talk, and even though they're caveats, they're actually really important things to remember. The first is stopping, quote, the blame game can be very difficult and take a long time depending on the situation. Key is progress in that direction. A lot of times when in self-help stuff and spiritual growth things, it's very tempting to say, all right, I have the will, I'm going to be more forgiving, I'm going to not blame people, I'm going to, come to services more, learn more Torah. It's very easy to get caught up in the ultimate goal and then get very discouraged when it doesn't happen so quickly. And I think particularly with things that are sort of more psychological, they're not so measurable as minutes of time spent learning in a class. It's important to realize that it's progress, not perfection, as they say. So if you just look at it as, let's say the blame level is like 100. And if you can knock off 10 points, 15 points here and there, for some wrongs, it might be done in a minute. It might be something, well, he was just having a bad day, or, well, I can replace the watch that was inadvertently stepped on by my friend. On the other hand, if it's something where it takes a lot of years, someone maybe a parent or a friend or a sibling who really hurt you, that could take much more time, weeks, maybe years. Or if it's if you're running a business and you suffer a great loss because you feel someone's cheated you, that too, till you recover just financially from that, it takes a long time. So the amount of time it's going to take to transcend the blame, even with the best of motives, it could take a while. And I think the key is just going in the right direction and not get frustrated when you say, oh, I can't get past this blame. It may just be that you're getting past it as much as you are able to at this point in time. The second thing is the need to blame is so strong that one needs God's help to overcome it. There are piano dots right by the corner. So the idea is we need God's help to overcome anything, but particularly when it comes to like emotions like blaming and forgiveness and transcending tragedy, as the title of the whole talk section, it's more important in some way. I don't know if you can say more important, but the need for God is really more heightened because it's so hard to do. If I want to like lift these pages, I need God to do that. God controls my arms. I need God's help to do that, but it's not so clear to me when I'm just living my day to day. But when it comes to letting go of something like blame, there's so many times where, like I say, give him the benefit of a doubt, or, get over it, or, she didn't mean it, or just all those things. I'll say that to myself, and it doesn't automatically happen. And it doesn't automatically happen often over a period of time, as I said. So sometimes we just realize we're powerless over this emotion to some degree, and we have to turn to God to free us from this feeling, because it's not something we can just sort of take out and throw away on our own. I think there was one year I remember there was some sort of resentment, which I felt was probably justified. And this was around the high holidays. And there's an idea around the high holidays that God will judge us as we judge others. So if we treat people with a sense of kindness and acceptance and letting things go, so to speak, that will be, in some sense, the way God treats us. So, I knew I had this incentive, as we all do, to say, just be easy on people, show compassion towards them, just as you would want God to have compassion on us. And even knowing this great incentive at the high holiday time, it was hard. So it's very, very important to us. We need God. Three, there's times when a person doesn't want to hear about not blaming others, so need to be in a state of mind open to the topic. It's very easy to be the person consoling a friend and say, come on, he didn't mean it, just don't blame him, he didn't know what he was doing. He was just acting out or whatever. And it depends who you're talking to and it depends on the circumstance, but if you say that too soon to the wrong person, it might create more problems than it's worth. Because if you get someone, there's an idea that if someone's mourning, you don't try to console someone when they're in the heat of their mourning or their anger. You have to kind of wait for the right time, assuming, unless they're going to do some more damage in the moment where you have to try to settle them down then, but wait for the right time in the right place to say, look, maybe you could be a little bit more forgiving of this person. Have you thought of this? Maybe you validate their feelings and understand where they're coming from and then sort of add, but maybe this is another way to see it. But I think everyone knows their friends and the people who are not friends, and it's important to have an intuitive sense as to when to bring these ideas up to someone, because if they're not really open to it, they'll fight back at you. They'll blame you because you're trying to stop them from blaming someone else, and they won't be open to the message. Whereas if you waited maybe another time when they were less heated or less involved in the moment, they might have said, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And finally, this is related to the second reason, the need to blame is often immediate and powerful. So it's so helpful to internalize negative costs to kick in quickly when the negative event occurs. The next two parts of this will show first, what do we get from blaming? We got to get something or else we wouldn't do it. But what are the costs of blaming another person? And so if we can sort of get in our head this idea, wow, there's real cost to this, then in the moment when it happens, when someone's done something to hurt you, if you can sort of just have those negative costs in mind, that can be enough to sort of temper the blame in that moment. In sports, there's this idea that if you practice a lot, like hour after hour after hour, then when you're in the game, it just comes to you. It's not like you even have to think about it. It's just an instinctive reaction. And in some sense, that's the task with something like blame, where we have to have so much internal fortitude that's already there, that when someone says something to hurt us, that at the same time we're having like some rebellious counterattack, we're also having some voice that's been implanted there that like, wait a minute, this isn't going to help things. So with those four caveats, the first section I want to go to is the next page, page 2, what benefits of blame? Now there's probably more than 5 benefits, but I just summarized a few of the more noteworthy ones. I think the one that's probably the most powerful is avoids personal responsibility for outcome. Basically, it's like, I did something and I don't want to be like blamed, accountable for it, so I say, it's not my fault. Now, if it's not my fault, then the next response could be, well, if it's not your fault, then whose fault is it? And it could be someone's like, well, it's his fault because he did A and B and I just did C, D, and E. But if he hadn't done A and B, it wouldn't have happened. So it's someone else's fault. Or it could be the situation's fault. Like, the weather, there was like, in Boston, they had all the snow during the winter. It's like, sorry, the report was like a month late. We had all this snow. And often the blame is like, it's not really true, but it's, it's a convenient way to get out of responsibility. So you blame some circumstance, you blame a person, but you don't blame yourself, because it's really very painful to accept blame. And as I said, saves one from embarrassment, monetary compensation, guilt, reduced self-esteem, and rebuke from the other person. And they're all pretty heavy things. I think if you're going to be embarrassed by being accountable for something, you don't want to accept responsibility for it. And in the moment, you avoid these consequences. So that's why people do it. It's almost an instinctive reaction. Sometimes when someone's indicted, they'll instinctively say they're not guilty, maybe as a legal term, to not get themselves implicated before they see a lawyer. But most of the time, it's just like something's happened and you don't want to deal with the pain it would have inside that you blew it, or externally someone's going to blame you for it. It's like the first thing that'll happen, like when a computer like malfunctions where I work, it's like, it's not my fault. It's not like, what's wrong with the computer? Can we fix it? It's like, it's not my fault, because I'm clumsy with that. So it's not my fault is a real powerful part. The second thing is you feel more in control of your life. If you can say that the reason something happened was because of this, then if I can fix that, then it won't happen. Let's say, I mess up this talk. I say, oh, I fall asleep in the middle of the talk, God forbid. Then I could say, well, had I taken a nap before the talk, especially on a fast day, then I wouldn't have fallen asleep. So I have some control that, like, okay, if I do A, B won't happen, and there's a good chance that it won't. But sometimes there's really no way to prove that any given circumstance would be responsible if we omitted it, that something wouldn't have happened. So let's say if we're late for class, lateness, which I'm often late for a class, or not this one, but late for let's say a prayer service. I can say that had I done this, I had gone to bed early, all these things should be done, gone to bed early, not had caffeine at night, they're all important. But at the end of the day, at some level, I'm not in control of that. I am in control of preparing for it and doing the things necessary to do what's necessary to prepare for it, but I'm not in control of it. I think this happened to some degree when the 9 people were tragically killed in the church incident, that people are right to say, well, if we had better gun control laws, that could have prevented it. If you believe that, they say, well, that was the reason it happened. Or someone could say, well, if we had better care for the mentally ill, that was the reason, because he was mentally ill, that was the reason. If we would have had that, it would have happened. Or maybe his parents could have stopped it. And they're all true. If you believe that it's true that gun control could have stopped it, would be right to put that on the table, would be right to put better mental facilities on the table. All these things are relevant, but at the end of the day, it can only go so far, because we didn't control that person's free will. That person, the one thing God gives us, we control not as much as we think, but especially free will is the one thing we're given control of. And once we get past that, it's really, we can't say that if we did A, then B would happen. We have a duty to do the things that would prevent B from happening, but we aren't in so much control that we can say, in any case, well, we did this, this wouldn't happen. So I think when we're dealing with something that goes wrong, there's some comfort with feeling like, yeah, we can do this and it'll end. And I think we really can never say that. We may feel like we can control everything, like we could all be social engineers and improve outcomes statistically, but we're only in control of the free will that we ourselves have. Related to this is, it fulfills the need to correct injustice and punish someone. I think there's a sense of, when something goes wrong, there's just some part of us that like says, well, you did it, you have to pay. You damaged the vase that broke, and maybe we won't want them to pay because they're a friend of ours, they're a child, they didn't have any, responsibility in that sense, but there's some part that wants to make things right. And if we really get caught up with that idea, it can be so consuming that it transcends other values. And that's why you can really believe in the rightness of something and the justice of something, and it still may not be the right thing to do. So when you say that, let's say this vase that broke, it's, let's say, $1,000. If in many cases that would be the right thing to do, is get the money back from the person who broke it, assuming they're responsible. But let's say it's your best friend or a neighbor who is going through hard times financially, or another neighbor who's teetering emotionally. You sense they're not quite right. They're having, maybe their family's dealing with some alcoholism or some other form of abuse. So there are extenuating circumstances. So on one hand, you have this idea that it's only just that the person should pay for the vase. That's the way it's clear. But is it as important as compassion for this other person? Is it important as the future relationship with another person? Is it important for the peace between two people? So as much as justice is important, there are times when it can be overwhelmed by other values such as peace. There's an idea in Jewish law called Bishara, which means that compromise can still be more of a value in a dispute, let's say a business dispute, than the quote right solution. So even if a Jewish Beit Din, a Jewish court is considering that, you know, this person may owe this person money, they still in many cases would suggest, concurrent with that, before they make a ruling, the idea maybe that they should compromise, because the compromise has a certain value to it in terms of improved relationships that transcends, in some cases, in some circumstances, the idea of justice. So sometimes people can get so caught up in this idea of justice that it ruins their lives. There can be, you hear stories of people that will contest a will for years, you know, and the lawyers are taking, I'm a lawyer, but some lawyers may justifiably be taking their fees, and that there's acrimony throughout all the extended family, and they're right in saying, well, I'm entitled to this money. But years go by, and money goes by, and relationships get frayed, and descendants of those relationships get an acrimony towards each other. So yes, justice may be done, but at what cost? The fourth is serves as outlet for a negative outcome. This says hurt and disappointment of event is channeled into blaming person or circumstance. Anger for outcome has a target to direct itself. It's a little bit like the second one where we want to control, but in this case, it's like, I'm angry that something has happened. And instead of going to like, how can I deal with this effectively? What solution is there to it? I go, I'm not happy with the outcome, so I yell. I yell at the person who I think is responsible. I may yell at myself if I think I'm responsible. I may yell at factors that I have no control over, like the weather or a wind that blows, you know, something off the table. But the response to something which isn't going right is anger. It's not like acceptance and deal with the situation, and that makes me feel good. It takes the disappointment at the event not happening as I'd like it to. Instead of going into responding, praying to God for help, responding calmly, it goes straight into anger. And that may feel good in the moment, but ultimately and it may have to be expressed in the moment because, you know, maybe we can't control it, but we can maybe only mitigate it. So even though we're yelling, we have some part of it says like, well, don't say this, don't at least go below the belt. But the anger feels good, but it doesn't really, and that's why it's a benefit of blame, because you get it out of you, but it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And finally, it postpones the need to make changes and move forward. And this would be like long-term blame. You know, 2 weeks after the incident where you were snubbed at the party, you're still ruminating about it. Or, you know, you lost the $100 because, you know, you yourself were at fault because you left your, you know, your wallet or your pocketbook on the table. What an idiot. You're still ruminating over that. And so this time the blame is really, the initial response is past, but you can't get past the longer term effects of it, and it's serving no purpose whatsoever. But still, it keeps you from moving forward. And some people, that's what they want. It's all subconscious, of course, but if someone doesn't want to move forward with a project or a job or a relationship, blame is really a great way to kind of keep it there stuck. So you don't have to really come up with a real reason why you want it to not move forward. So if you stay in blame, that's a good reason to not move forward with the relationship, not move forward with the job, not move forward with the project. You just stay in blame. And in longer term, if you're really affected by an event, again, an abusive situation, a person who's wronged you with many dollars of embezzlement, you know, everyone has to deal with that. I'm not really in a place to say how anyone can deal with really traumatic long-term things, because everyone has to deal with it on their own. And that's what I meant before. You can't, until you're really close to someone, it's almost cavalier to globally say, well, just move on, just move past it. Because some things are really, they need a lot of work and healing, and it's not for anyone to say how fast or slow one's going to get over it. But I think on one's own, there should still, when someone can't get past a certain situation, it's good to have some part of oneself to think like, well, what am I gaining from this by keeping my head in this place? What am I avoiding? And that still may not be enough to get them over the blame, but it could give them the willingness to move forward. Because again, the greatest loss in a situation, no matter what the pain someone has caused you, or even you've caused yourself, is getting stuck there. Because then no life can move forward if you're stuck. So people can have things in their lives that they themselves did, regrets about this thing or that thing they personally felt that others did to them or circumstances did to them, and they're spot on. I mean, there's other circumstances, but you can make a very good case that had A not happened, B wouldn't be happening, and I'm in B. But again, the question is, you know, at the end of the day, even if you get an award for yes, you were right, a voice from above says you are right, if you haven't moved forward, then it's perpetuated whatever wrong you committed to yourself or someone did to you. I just want to go to the cost of blame. I never timed this talk, so we may have to run quickly at the end. But the costs are important because if we know the cost, then there's no freebie with blame. Even though there are all these benefits that we have, which are sort of upfront benefits. You know, you avoid the guilt, you avoid the responsibility, you avoid this, you feel good, you're getting it all out of you. There are real costs, and I'll go over them somewhat more quickly. First, it prevents you learning from the experience, because if you're angry and you're sort of justifying your anger at someone, you're blaming someone, then you're not really in a place where you can say, well, what can I learn from this experience? Maybe I could have been more prudent in dealing with this person, or maybe there were red flags in this relationship and next time I should be better aware of those red flags, or maybe I shouldn't do everything impetuously because look what it led to. If I'm in blame mode, those lessons are not going to be heard because I'm going to say that's where I'm at, blaming someone else, blaming myself. Second, it creates a negative atmosphere. If it's internal blame, your head is just not in a good place. You're not in the place that you're going to be open to solutions and hope and promise. You're just in a negative place of self-blame. And also, if you're making someone else defensive and hurt, they're not in a good place because they're not feeling very safe because they're being attacked and they shouldn't feel safe. So any positive outcome is not going to happen when you're in a state of blame, yourself or the others. It's hard to be objective and determine who's at fault because you have a vested interest in protecting yourself from blame and relates that you're a vested interest in blaming someone else. So if, let's say in the instance of the vase, let's say I said, no, look at the vase, and the person says, no, I really don't want to touch it. I'm a little nervous. I said, no, it'll be okay. And they touch it, and then, you know, they drop it. So there it's like, I could blame him, you dropped the vase, but I'm kind of responsible too because I encouraged him to pick up the vase. In most situations, there's probably some contributing outcome where it's usually not 100% someone's fault. You know, I'm sorry I was late for the meeting. That seems like it's all on me, but there was a traffic jam. Circumstance. But if I anticipated traffic, which is normal, I could have prevented that. But, you know, the last meeting I had, someone was rambling and it was late, so it's really this person from the other meeting. But, you know, that person was, you know, had a long lunch because of, you know, their child was sick. They had to go to the school for lunch, so that's why they were. But there's so many factors, known and unknown, in a situation that it's very hard to determine who is at fault completely. So in legal cases, you have to do this sort of accounting, what's contributory, but in daily life, it makes it hard to say, wait a minute, it's not all on this person. A lot of it is, but there might be some on me, there might be some on other people, and that sort of can temper the blame that we have directed all at one person. Fourth one is pretty big. The role of God in life is ignored. There's an idea that when people do something to you, it's their fault. And they are the direct person who's doing something to you. Let's say someone takes my wallet, a pickpocket. Now, that person is totally accountable for doing that. If I find who it is, I can take them to court. That person has to repair their relationship with God if they believe in God, in me, if they want to apologize for me, give me my wallet back. They're a very repentant criminal. But at some level, God may have wanted that to happen because, let's say, the day before, a couple of charity solicitors came to my door, and I abruptly said, go away, I can't deal with you. You know, they asked for a small amount of money, let's say $18. I said, I can't spare it. Let's say I did that twice. And then sure enough, in my wallet, wow, I lost $36 with this. Now, usually it's not that obvious that God's giving a message that obvious, but something maybe related to that, it might be meant to send me a message. So is the person, the robber, accountable? Yes. But that it had to happen to me at that time when there were a lot of people who could have been the victim of this pickpocket, that involves some sense of accountability to God. That, again, no one can say for sure what a given message is. No one can say, certainly with things like the Holocaust and great tragedies, it's impossible to say, you know, if I did this, then this would have happened. I'm not really going there. That's far too difficult to really get into. But on a personal level, when things go wrong, it's not a bad idea to think, wait a minute, why could this have happened? Maybe this person was sent here and their character flaw is making me work on something. Let's say someone is chronically late, and that means they can't help their lateness. That's their big issue. So maybe they're in my life because I have to learn patience. So do I ask them, please don't be late? Yes. But another part of me is saying, wow, why is this person in my life? Maybe I have to learn patience. Solutions to a situation less likely to occur. Again, we kind of went over that. Instead of, once something happens, instead of dealing with what's the next right step, you kind of get into like, how dare you do blah, blah, blah. With the vase, maybe with the vase you could put it together. Maybe there are a few pieces you could gently take off the ground and give it to someone who could repair it. And it could be such a great repair that it would be almost negligible what happened to it. But if you're in a situation of blame and anger, you're probably not going to think of that. You may like just wipe off the vase, or like, you know, accidentally step on a piece because you're just so discombobulated, or you don't even get it repaired. You say, well, it's all broken, what good is it? So a lot of cases where the circumstance can be mitigated gets lost because of our emotional well-being is compromised. 6, personal growth suffers. Again, it's kind of related to the idea that, you know, why God put something in our lives is to learn something. But I think if we have a repetitive sense of blaming others for our failings, it gets to long-term growth problems. Like you lose your sense of integrity because deep down you know you're blaming someone else. Your self-esteem is kind of diminished because it's like, how good can you feel when you threw someone else under the bus for your mistake? And you know you've avoided responsibility. So the idea of empowerment that comes with free will and accepting responsibility, even when we make mistakes, you lose all that. And over time, even if the short-term gain of blaming someone has a payoff, gradually the self-esteem and our sense of personal integrity erodes, and it creates a longer cost of unhappiness than any happiness we could have gotten by avoiding blame. And finally, the negative impact on the Jewish people is ignored. And this is often understated because usually blame gets into issues of like, well, for the sake of the family, make up, or for the sake of the business, or just, no, you want to keep the relationship with A and B good. But on a broader scale, the relationship among the Jewish people is an incredibly important and powerful idea. That's why when we say the temple was destroyed, and by definition, all the pain and the suffering of the Jewish people and the world is the result of groundless hatred, and that's related to blame. So when one blames another person, or one can't forgive another person, or one is yelling at another person, all of those things are affecting the Jewish people and the world. They have a certain cosmic significance that really is very powerful. So it's not so much that, yes, it's good to not blame people because of each other, but the whole system of relationships was broken down in the times of the Second Temple. And all those little incidents sort of came together to the point where God said, I can't reside in the temple, I can't reside with you people. And we still suffer from that. So there's a story in a book, I think it's the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Survival Guide. And my recollection is there was in 1967, the 67 war, there was a rabbi and a bomb shelter. And I forget who it was, but there was a woman, I'm sort of paraphrasing, a woman in this bomb shelter that was sort of against the wall praying, saying, you know, someone who's harmed me, someone who really harmed her, she said, I forgive him for all he's done to me. Some sort of plea of forgiveness, ending why, so that I forgive him, can't you forgive us, God, for what we've done? And sure enough, after the incident, after they escaped from the shelter, this rabbi who, great rabbis have some powers to see the future. It may not be prophetic per se, but what a great sage has to say about events it's more seriously taken than I saying these things. And this rabbi said, because of this woman's plea of forgiving someone who had hurt her so much, that's why we were saved. And in the merit of this woman doing this, we were saved. And the idea of getting merit to the Jewish people is really from other people's actions, is because we're all connected at some level. So the good things we do, the hard things we do, they don't just benefit us, they benefit the Jewish people and the world, because it's not just us that we're suffering because of the temples being destroyed. The entire world is in pain because of that. So when we see suffering in Sudan and homelessness and all this problems in the Middle East and discrimination, any wrong you can consider at some level was related to the destruction of the temple, because when the temple was in place, the whole world was just in a different place, not only the Jewish people, but the whole world. So in some way, everything around us, not just what's happening to individuals or the Jewish people, that's suffering. Wow, only 15 more minutes, but I'm going to go quickly through these strategies, and then whatever time I have left, I'll deal with whatever time I have left. The strategy to explain. Now, these strategies are in the article. They're outlined more so in the article which follows. So, actually, why don't we just go straight to the article? This would be the page 1. It's 10 affirmations for a peaceful year. Again, on the website. And this was written by Rosh Hashanah time, but it's quite relevant to our time. And I'm going to go through these quickly, and hopefully we'll get through them. At 5 o'clock, the class is supposed to end. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be able to answer them. Or if anyone's watching online, jewishspiritualresponse@gmail.org. Just got to promote that little site. Okay, first, I place a great value on maintaining peaceful relationships and am willing to invest the time and effort to actualize this value. Again, we're not really going to go through the commentary, but the basic idea is that we all say we want peace. Peace is really important. But the real question is, what price are you willing to pay for peace? So sometimes the price is saying, like, I've been wronged, you've hurt me, but I know you're not in a place where you're going to accept you're just too out of left that anything I say is not going to make you reconsider. So I'm just going to try to get past the blame and keep the relationship going for the sake of peace. And that may not always be the case. Sometimes people are abusive and you have to leave. Sometimes friendships have to be taken away. But in some cases, the main thing is just want to take peace in the relationship. So the cost of peace is letting go of blame. So blame, injustice, and all that good stuff, which has its place, you're saying peace is so important that it's going to transcend that. And there's an idea that all the blessings of the Jewish people are kind of contained in this cup of peace, that peace is the vessel for all blessings. So that, in some sense, again, with many caveats, depending on the circumstance, peace is still the ultimate Jewish value. Second, I accept responsibility for my words and actions. And again, that's the case where no matter what happens, circumstances, other people, ultimately, we ourselves can only control our side of the street. And so there's a quote from this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff, a very good book. This doesn't mean that you don't hold yourself accountable for their reactions, but that you hold yourself accountable for your own happiness and your actions to other people and their circumstances around you. So you're accountable to your reaction to the degree that you can. Other people are accounting to their stuff, but we still have some control to the extent that we can. 3, we went over this. I accept that God may bring difficult people into my life to help me grow in a spiritual direction. We went over that. Some things happening, difficult people, everywhere you look, difficult people. Families, work, friends, difficult people, of which we are difficult ourselves in some way. And the idea is like, well, why can I learn from this? How can I grow? Like I said at the beginning, very, very hard. Do it a little bit at a time. 4, I examine my motives when disagreeing with another and am willing to receive guidance to gain a more objective perspective. The idea here is that we have a vested interest in not blaming ourselves. There's an idea in the Torah that says, a wise judge is forbidden from taking a bribe. And you say, a wise judge, God himself is, I think, from Rabbi himself, puts in this idea that God himself is saying that this person is a wise person, and even he can't take a bribe, because no matter how smart you are, no matter how learned you are, no matter how above integrity sterling you have, at some level, when you get a bribe, in this case, it may be a monetary bribe, you're going to be affected by it. So take something like blame. You're not in a place where you can be objective about your circumstance. So you have to maybe talk it over with a trusted friend, a rabbi, a therapist, someone who can give you some objectivity in terms of what's really going on once you get past your own perspective. 5, big thing, I will treat myself with respect and compassion. It's very important. It's one of the hardest things if you're into self-blame, as I am, and I think a lot of people, to say, look, you messed up, you're human, I know I have to fix it up, I'm not sort of giving myself this free pass, but at some level there has to be a compassion for our own humanity and our own self, that we make mistakes and we can be okay with them. We correct them, we work on them, but that we're not destroyed by them, and that just as we would comfort a friend, we all have friends that we try to comfort when they're feeling bad about something. Oh, come on, and we have to be able to do that to ourselves, not so that we can say, okay, doesn't matter, I'm moving on with my life, just so that you can really give yourself the strength you need to move on with your life, that you don't get so put up in the flagellation that it becomes impossible to move you through life. And if the cudgel of flagellation, of self-blame, is in your hand, and you realize that, well, if I made a mistake here, I'm going to feel that cudgel, then it really works against accepting responsibility, because if I don't have compassion for myself, then the only alternative to avoid that cudgel is to blame you, or blame the circumstance, or blame my past, because I don't have enough self-compassion to take that blow myself, so I have to blame it on you. Whereas if I did have a sense that I'm going to treat myself with respect and compassion and a sense of dignity, then I have the strength to accept blame, even when it would be easier to go elsewhere, because it's more important to accept the blame than to, because I won't be hurt. And the flip side is that you treat others that same way. Again, I'm staying away from real long-term abuse and things like that, which this could apply, but that's like everyone has to work through that. But on things in our daily lives, you have to have, there needs to be respect and compassion for the other person. Yes, you broke the vase. Yes, you hurt my feelings. Yes, you said something which was really kind of stupid. But at some point, there has to be a sense like, look, this person is a human being. They have a soul. They're not evil. They just have many limitations. And maybe they're doing the best they can with their limitations. And if you give them that compassion and respect, they'll feel safe too. I think Stephen Covey uses the term psychological air. They'll feel a little safer. So they'll be more able to accept blame. B, they'll help work with you to find a solution if there is one. And C, they won't yell back at you because they don't feel as attacked. So it's really a win-win to treat the other person with compassion. So we live in a society that's very like, justice, and justice is a good value, but sometimes in personal relationships, you just kind of look past that. It's just, compassion is the main thing to act, both with ourselves and with other people. 8 minutes, okay, moving. I will seek to understand another's point of view, even when I think it's wrong. Basically, this is like empathy. Like, I think one thing, you think another, I think you're wrong, you think I'm wrong. So the idea is like, even though this person I think is like crazy, what are they really thinking? Certainly in public debates, you could see this. I think it's like, someone could say like gun control, used that before. It makes sense. How can you not have gun control? You'd stop all these killings. But someone who's maybe not in favor of gun control, look, they're criminals, they're going to get the guns anyway. And meanwhile, we have constitutional rights to the gun, or it's not the way to deal with the problem. And any issue, even personal ones, like, how could you say that to me? Well, I didn't mean it, and how can you not mean it? And so you try to, at least in some part of you might say, well, explain to me what you meant. And say, like, you can't always do this, but like, sometimes you'll say, there's an exercise where you articulate the other person's perspective in your own way. So I hear you saying that you didn't really mean to snub me, you just were focused on getting the hot dog at the kiddish. You weren't snubbing me, you were just focused on something else. So that it's always good to get the other perspective. 9, this is probably maybe the most important thing. I can choose to accept life on life's terms. Basically, there's a great, Rabbi Abraham Twersky is a Jewish rabbi who's also an addiction counselor who's worked, one of his major contributions has been to bring addiction perspectives into everyday life with the idea that we're all at some level suffering from these issues. I think another speaker is speaking about this later. So there's a lot of good wisdom in books that are meant for people suffering from addictions to drugs, food, alcohol, whatever. And there's a quote that's sort of a famous quote in one of these books. It may be in the Tversky book, but it's in a lot of 12-step stuff. Again, good for everyone. And it's at the bottom of part 9. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some factor of my life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly as it's supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Unless I accept life on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. And that's really the bottom line with blame. Unless I accept life on life's terms, I cannot be happy. So blame, at the end of the day, after maybe you've made some level of accountability of the other person, which is justified, maybe some remuneration, after you've sort of taken care of that, there's a point where you say, like, I'm just not going to be happy if I live with this. And I have some responsibility for that. Again, it's not easy. And again, that's why we need God to sort of help us. And it may be that someone spends a lifetime with 1 or 2 issues in their head, and it's like they need a whole lifetime to work through that resentment. And finally, again, by acting more peacefully with others, I can help to achieve peace with Israel and the world. And again, we mentioned that, and there's a great quote from Rabbi Yaakov Solomon, which he wrote in an article, and I'll sort of come to a closure with this. I'd love to go on. In the back of our minds, we probably all reserve some space for the possibility that God truly runs the world, not kings, presidents, prime ministers, or terrorists. But the fact is that we are human, and we forget time has come to lift our spiritual cataracts. The only way the script is going to change is if we resolve to do something about it. It is only when we stop vilifying our leaders, solely blaming our enemies, and worshiping the media, and begin to look seriously at ourselves that this madness is really going to stop. Nothing else can or will work. The time has come. And I think looking around the world today, there's the Jewish way showing we work through the world, but we realize that God controls it. So it's like be within, stay above, as Rabbi Friedman had said. So when we see what's going on in the world today, however you feel on the Iran deal or ISIS or personal relationships or peace and racial issues, all the issues that we see swirling in the world, we have to do everything in our power to deal with them as the best we can see fit, even if they're not the same from person to person. But at some level, there should be a sense that the ultimate success of these is going to depend on things which God says on this day of Tisha B'Av, loving each other, dealing with our limitations. The first temple was destroyed because of immorality and killing and idol worship, more passionate things. But whether it's learning about how to become a better person or how to relate with others, those are the factors that are going to create the spiritual atmosphere from which everything flows. So that's really the end game with all of this. God willing, I want to bless everyone, including myself. God willing, we should all be blessed that we have God's help in creating a better world, a better inner life, a better spiritual life, and that should sort of trickle down spirituality. I think we can say that. So that the next year, by this time next year, we're celebrating the rebuilding of the temple, and we have a world at peace, and the Jews are a light unto the nations, as is our mission. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to just do a little bit of filler before Steve Eisenberg gets down here any second. But here's just a quick question: Is there less or more to be concerned with this Tisha B'Av, or is it just sort of par for the course? It's like is it a regular year? Is it an unusual one, or is it better than average? What do you say? I've shocked all of you.
It's unusual the time would be long.
Okay. Unusual worse. Does that make it easier to focus on the holiday? Okay, there's one yes.
Also worse because of increasing anti-Semitism in the world. All the time we heard about things happening, especially in Europe, that stops them thinking that they're anti-Semitism. It seemed that there was some kind of merger that didn't happen because some Jewish businessman in America was opposed to it, and someone said the Jews control Wall Street.
We do, right? That's what I heard.
What does she?
Right. Okay. So so worse, normal, or worse? Okay. Does anyone say it's better? Anyone say it's just pretty much the same?
A little better than last year,
Yeah.
but overall, worse.
Okay. Good. So you know, the general feeling that I have from most people and most people that I've been speaking to over the last chunk of time is that the trajectory has been significantly worse than it has been in past years. And in fact, I remember Tisha B'Av in this room 15 years ago, getting up and giving a talk and feeling like I didn't have that much to say, honestly. This is in 2000, right? Pre 9/11. And I was thinking, like, what am I going to talk about? Like, there's problems, but, you know, nothing insurmountable, right? So this is the first year I personally felt like we've got Hamas in the south, we've got Hezbollah in the north, we've got ISIS all over the place, we've got anti-Semitism on campuses, which is growing by leaps and bounds. There's the BDS movement, which is becoming bigger and bigger and more successful. And then that's all before even you get onto the Iran issue, right? And so, like, to me, it's like, it's pretty bad. Like, you know, but the one thing, and sticking with the theme of the holiday today, actually, I tweeted a few weeks ago, and I'm not such a big Twitter guy, but I tweeted something along the lines of, this must be what it felt like to live through the Purim story. You know, like, or like one thing happens, another, like and the news sort of like squeezes in. That's sort of how I was feeling when I tweeted. And of course, we know how that story ended. There was another Persian theme where we were totally fine, and everything ended up totally fine. And that's, you know, God willing, what I hope that our fasting and our tshuva and our focus on the holiday is going to bring about. But I was just curious to see how you felt about it. Would somebody maybe just pop out and see if Steve Eisenberg is standing right there? He's here? Okay. Hello, home viewers. Steve Eisenberg. I could give a very long intro. You need it? Yeah. But I need you to stand in front of this. I don't want, I can't block you. Is that all right? So you want to sit down?
No, good.
Okay, fine. Steve has been at the forefront of Jewish education and bringing people closer to their Judaism for at least 20 years. I've been watching him do it for 15. He is.
Like our mitzvah, I started doing.
Yeah. So he is a consummate professional in this regard, even though he's a businessman by trade. He's tireless in his love of the Jewish people and his efforts and his constant availability to help people do a mitzvah of any kind, to find a job, to find a place to go for a Shabbos meal, to help people in any way possible. He embodies chesed, loving kindness in my estimation, and I've learned a lot from him over the years, as have many people, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome him to speak to us today. Steve Eisenberg.
Thank you.
You want it?
Yeah, thanks. How do you do it? That's good. It's good there.
Oh, let's see. You appear in the frame.
That's right. Okay, great. Hi. So figured I had surgery on Thursday last week, so little out of sorts. Okay. So Tisha B'Av. So I think it's really ridiculous that 2,000 years we're still fasting and going through this process, right? It's like Groundhog Day for 2,000 years. Groundhog. It was the movie Groundhog Day, right? 2,000 years, we're still waiting for this moment. I just got back from Israel last week, and I was really hoping that this day was going to be canceled, but not yet. Okay. So everyone knows, Chazal tell us that the temple was destroyed
first time, second time, not because people weren't eating glad kosher, because there were no kosher sushi restaurants, because people weren't covering their hair, because they weren't taking the bugs in the lettuce, but because of sinas chinam. The Jews, surprise, surprise, were not getting along with each other. They had bad words for each other. In Yiddish, they misforginned each other. They always had stuff on each other. And here we are 2,000 years later, you know, and I think Hashem says, you guys don't get it. You know, it's like you have a leak in your home, and you say to your wife, you say to your husband, you say to your children, you say to your landlord, there's a leak in the ceiling. Yeah, because we have to have it fixed. It's the fact that we're still in Gullus, the fact that we still have all these problems and issues, and it's not abating because we haven't fixed the problem. The problem is that we still don't get it. We're still fighting and arguing amongst ourselves. Sephardim and Ashkenazim, Mashadi, Tirani, West Side Jew, East Side, we're not getting it. Okay, so very often, I just finished my 19th birthday trip a few months ago. And very often, you know, people say to me, Steve, my professional career, Steve, I'm not religious, I'm not observant, but I am a good person. Ever hear that line? As if being an observant person and being a good person are mutually exclusive. But it was this very, very room, Rebbetzin Weinberg was giving a class. Myself and a friend, Jonathan Lamstein, we wanted to hear Rebbetzin Weinberg, and we hid in that closet over there. Right? We're hiding in that closet to hear some wisdom from Rebbetzin Weinberg. So she says, is it enough, Rebbetzin Weinberg, to be a good person? So she says, no, not if you're a Jew. Because the goal of a Jew, the goal of a human being is not to be a good person, but to be a great person. No one wants to be a good mother. Nobody wants to be a good father. Nobody, if God forbid someone's ill, you don't want to go to a good cardiologist. You want to go, God forbid, to the best cardiologist. If you have money to invest, you don't want to go to a good money manager. You want to go to a great money manager, correct? Right? So why is it when people say, I'm a good person? So I never understand when people say that. If someone would ask me, Steve, are you a good person? I'm working on it. I hope so. But guess what? The goal of the Jew is not to be a good person, but to be a great person, to be a great mother, great father, great son, great neighbor, great Jew, great employee, correct? All right. So again, let's go back to the video. 2,000 years ago, we're driven out of our land. Let me ask you a question. How many here trace your ancestry to Poland? Raise your hand. Russia, Lithuania, Iraq, Morocco, France, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, Poland, Russia, okay, Algeria. But guys, had our grandparents or parents come to those countries? Because 2,000 years ago, we were all in a place called Eretz Yisrael, and then we were driven out to the four corners of the earth. So this is really an aberration. We should not be here. Plan A was that we were going to change the world from Eretz Yisrael. We were going to teach the world the value of life, all life, sanctity of animal life, value of the planet, charity. And by the way, we've done all those things. But plan B was we couldn't do it within our borders. So Shem says, now, because you didn't do what you should have done, I'm going to have to send you to the four corners of the earth, and it's going to come at a tremendous cost. I'm sending out, you know, the lambs to the wolves, but you're going to teach the world what you could have taught them from the land of Israel, the four corners of the earth. And that's how we ended up in all these places, correct? Okay, so the class we're having today, it's called Words Can Hurt, Words Can Heal, all right? Based on some lectures I attended with Rabbi Pliskin. So in America, for those of us who went to public school, maybe day schools, they taught us, sticks and stones may break my bones, but things they never hurt. So I don't know what they are talking about. Half of Manhattan's in therapy because of negative words that was told to them when they were kids, correct? Or negative words that your mothers or fathers or family said. What are they talking about? I went to a wedding in LA, young couple from Aish actually, and there was this very big guy, and wherever I was, he was dancing, and sure enough, he jumped on my foot, he broke my foot. It was my friend Rob Kurtz. I don't remember his name, I don't remember what he looks like, so sticks and stones may break my bones, but orthopedic surgeons can fix me. Words can destroy. You don't have to answer this, but how many here remember negative words that was said to you a year, 5, 10, 15 years ago? Raise your hand. So what are they talking about? Words can't hurt? How many here, if they answer, have families, uncles and aunts and grandparents and brothers and sisters you don't speak to because of negative words? I have relatives I don't speak to. I asked my mom, why don't we speak to them? Something happened with grandpa when they came from Poland. That was it, finished, because of negative words, right? Think about it. So words can destroy. Words can destroy communities, destroy the Jewish people, right? 2,000 years ago, we're still not back in our land as a spiritual nation, totally, right? So the goal of a Jew is not to be good, to be great. So next few minutes we have together, we'll work together and see how we hurt people all the time with our words. And very often people say, you know, Steve, I don't hurt anyone. So either they're liars or they're out of their minds. Because if you plug the Torah into your speech patterns, you'll see we hurt people all the time with our words. Okay? If you want to be a good person, okay, maybe not. But if you want to be a great person, you'll see. Okay. So words can hurt. Words can hurt. Words can heal. Okay. So we all know the famous mashal, Chaim, taking a pillow and smacking with a rod, and all the feathers fly everywhere. And then the person says to the Chaim, I want to retrieve all the negative words. I spray it out into the universe. Chaim says, that's great. Take the pillow, hit the pillow, and go catch all the feathers. If you could do that, then you could try to retrieve the words. All right? Truth is, when you spray negative words out about people, families, the words can never be taken back. Yes, you can apologize, but those words still sting. All right. So what are the lessons to be learned? So for those of you who, like me, I shouldn't discuss this on a fast day, you could have tough meat or you could have soft meat. You could have tough meat or soft meat. The difference is how it's tenderized or how you hit it with a little cooking hammer, correct? You could have soft words or you could have tough words. And you'll see now how we all, and by the way, we hurt ourselves as well with negative words. Okay, why are words so important? Because it could destroy a family, it destroys a community, it destroys the Jewish people, and it could destroy ourselves. How many people walk around in life and don't accomplish what they could have accomplished, but because they have negative words from their mothers or fathers or growing up, right? Being bullied. There's so many people who never got to where they could be because they had negative tapes. Okay, so let's start. They say that great people talk about ideas, mediocre people talk about things, and low people talk about other people. Okay, so we're not even going to go there today. When we malign other people, again, there's a time and place for business and for setting people up. When we malign other people, not only are you destroying that person, but you're destroying yourself. Kabbalistically, we have Steve here, who's a claimed Kabbalist, Rabbi Jacobs. Thank you, Rabbi Jacobs, for giving this opportunity. But words, every time that you speak about someone else, if you only knew what that was costing you, $500, $1,000, car breaking down, the job that you did, you have no idea what it's costing you. So have a good time, say those words, but you have no idea what it's costing you. Okay? All right. So what are some examples? Okay, forget about bad words, maligning people. We all know what Lashon Hara is, but bad words. All right? Number one, it destroys people's confidence. So what are some examples of this, Rabbi Pliskin? Whenever we find ourselves saying to someone, you'll never get a reservation, JetJew will never get a flight to Florida. You're never going to get a flight on El Al. You're never going to get accepted to that program at Columbia. You're never going to get a job. Those are negative words that destroy. Firstly, why is it so wrong? Because we have a notion called Yeshua T'Shem Terrifying. With a blink of an eyelash, anything can change. Okay? Statistically, you can look at New York Magazine, you can look at New York Times, you can say 95% probability of X, Y, and Z. Guess what? They're right. But we're Jews. Yeshua T'Shem Terrifying. With a blink of an eyelash, things can change, right? So when you say these negative words to someone, you rob their confidence, you are taking away their confidence of achieving something great. You have no right to do that. That's wrong. It's usher. That's negative words, right? And that undermines them, and it undermines the person they work with, and their family, et cetera, right? Instead of saying to someone, you know something? I know it's very challenging to get a ticket, but I'm sure you're going to get the job. You're going to get the ticket. You're going to be the one to get the 1 out of 100, correct? We're Jews, expect the unexpected. Okay. You say things like, I know a lot of people, but no one I know that has ever had success in this area or that area, correct? That's also robbing them from hope. You have no right to do that. What you're really doing, you're instituting godlessness, because you don't believe that Hashem can help that person if they want to. Yes, there's a natural way of things, but you have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea what's going to happen. There's Teva, there's nature, and we're Jews. Expect the unexpected. Okay. Then there's things that we could do to give people encouragement. So I led a birthright trip with Rabbi Aaron Glazer, who used to be a rabbi here, and it was called Jews Gone Wild. It was an extreme birthright outdoors trip. And I wouldn't really know what I was getting into. I never would have done it. I thought I was going to die. So we had rappelling. You know what rappelling is? Rock climbing? Okay, so in Israel, there's a place called Rachav. So I was told Rachav was a beginner's rock. It was advanced. All right, half the trip, well, oh my God, this is a trip of their lives. And the other trip, half the trip were crying. And because of Chasya, this one, my Madrich Chasya, stood there going, Steve, you could do it. You could do it. I was a Madrich. I couldn't exactly. She encouraged me. I did it. The right person giving you encouraging words will push you to the level, correct? Words can build, words can destroy. All right. We know that we learn from everything. So we have the famous mashal, okay, of Rabbi Kiva. And everyone knows the story that Rabbi Kiva was walking in a wilderness and in a forest, and he saw the water cascading over rocks, right? We all know that he saw the water permeating, touching the rocks, and said if it can make an indentation on the rock, it could affect me. But what's the bigger picture of that is that we can learn from everything that we see in our lives, correct? He was able to see, I can do it. If a rock can change, I can change. And so too in our lives, all right? Anytime we see something, anytime we experience something, Shem put that there for us to experience, to learn, to grow. I could do that. You learn from a rock. But even more so, can we get encouragement from another human being, correct? Okay. What's another thing? So I have the great privilege of davening in the Karbach Shul. How could you tell if someone was part of the Karbach Chevra? Do you feel better about yourself after than you did before you left that person? What does that mean? It's all Karbach Chevra. Whoever is connected to Shlomo, when you meet them after, you feel 15 feet off the ground. They always make you feel special. Hey, I come from an amazing family, right? Especially the women. My mom, whenever she meets someone, they always get a compliment. I'm not talking about being psychophantic, but a great person with words builds someone up. What a great blouse, what a great smile, what a great yarmulke, what a great color. I just heard, like your children's so amazing, your husband's so amazing, right? Your challah is the best in the West Side, correct? Great people make people feel great. People who are not great pull you down, okay? Great people have great words building people up. And I know, I don't know most of you in the room, but we all go through stuff in our lives. So what? And Reb Shlomo used to say, every Jew is allowed to have 1 hour a day of depressed. Okay, 10 to 11, leave me alone, this is my hour of depression. Why is depression so negative? That's another class. Because we don't believe that Hashem can change your life. You don't believe that life can change on a dime. Noah Weinberg, right, founder of Aish Center, used to always ask me, did I purchase a lottery ticket? And I would say most of the time, no. You don't believe in Hashem, you would say. Why? Because you don't believe you could win. How many times do I have 15 weeks of lottery tickets? I don't even check the numbers. Why? Because do I really think I'm going to win? No. I don't deserve to win, correct? When you buy a lottery ticket, but Noah would say, you should be shocked that you did win the lottery ticket. Because Hashem can make it happen. If you say you don't need the money, buy the ticket, win, and come to Steve, Rabbi Jacobs, I can help you with some organization. All right? But again, a great person makes people feel like they could always have a lottery ticket. All right? Okay, what's another example of negative words? Insulting someone's intelligence. We see this all the time. I see this in the West Side, East Side, in the community, place of work. What are you, an idiot? What did you go to? Did you go to college? What are you, a child? All those negative words, by the way, you don't know when you say that to someone what their childhood background is. They might have heard that from there. Right? How many times people are afraid to ask questions? Why? Because they had a teacher in the university or growing up who would chastise them and make them feel stupid, right? Make them feel very idiotic by asking a foolish question. Where someone else not afraid to ask the question because they were encouraged as someone way to grow. A foolish person doesn't ask questions, can't grow. Okay. You ask someone, where is something? Well, where did you leave it? Well, if I knew where I left it, what is the foolish thing to say to someone? Ever hear that? Right. See, where did you leave it? If I knew where I left it, right? Or there's another thing I hear all the time is you ask someone a question and they repeat it back to you. Do you know where the Empire State Building is? You don't know where the Empire State Building is? No. If I knew where the Empire State Building was, I wouldn't ask you. So we just established, I don't know, right? When someone repeats, no, I'm just shocked you didn't. Okay, fine. So you repeated that to make me feel foolisher than I am, correct? That's another way of, again, this is all why the temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago. All this stuff caused people to be disconnected from each other, in the community, in shuls, in our families. In totality, when all this got added up, Shem says, you know something? You have to leave and figure this out yourself. So if someone asks you a question, the answer is this. It's not your job to be their teacher, explaining to them how they should have known that, correct? What's the name of the Secretary of State of America? You don't know? No, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you the question, right? Has everyone experienced that before? They answer, they repeat the question back. It's just their way of making you feel foolish. Okay. Appearance. Someone makes a comment on your hair, your nose, your ears are too big, you have terrible hair. The answer is, tell it to my creator. I'm sorry, Shem made my hair the way it is. My ears are too big, my nose is too big, I'm too short. Steve, you're really short for your. Thank you so much. I really didn't have much choice about that. Okay? So what are they saying? And by the way, it's all negative words. All negative words. Okay? You say something and someone says, can't you hear? No, actually I can hear. So I just want to tell you a story about judging people favorably. So there's an amazing rabbi in Muncie. His name is Rabbi Klaskow. Right? Shabbat.com. Very, very special man. Okay? So a number of years ago, called me up, and young woman went on I think his trip or birthday trip, 25-year-old woman, girl, and she was very inspired. She wanted to start keeping Shabbat. She was working for MTV in Columbus Circle, Time Warner. So, you know, when Shabbos comes in 4 o'clock, it's very difficult, it's challenging, okay, for her to tell her boss, by the way, I'm leaving 10 o'clock in the morning, okay, for a new job. So she said, could you help her? I said, fine. I have very dear friends on the West Side. I said, we'll find places for her to stay. And every week, every single week, the families would call me up, Steve, this girl, is she coming? Is she not coming? I'd call her up, Emily, please email Lisa Adler, please call this family, please call that family. Steve, I lost the number, my phone died, my computer got attacked by Bulgarian refugee. Every week was a different story, and the truth is, for the 3rd week, I was like really done. And if I wouldn't, years ago, I probably would have answered her differently. Finally, after Shabbat, I called Rabbi Klaskow. I said, Rabbi K, I got to tell you, this woman is driving me out of her mind. I'll do anything to help someone keep Shabbat, but I can't take this. He goes, oh, didn't I tell you? Tell me what? Oh, she was in a coma for 7 years. I'm not the greatest active listener, but no, I don't think you told me. Yeah, I did. She was in a car accident in Memphis, Tennessee, and she was in a coma for 7 years. And Rabbi, I would have remembered that story, all right? Anyway, so yeah, she has gaps in her brain, and even though she's so accomplished, she misses information. Now imagine if I would have said to her, what are you, stupid? What are you, an idiot? What are you? Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. I was in a coma for 7 years. I'm sorry. How would I have felt? So what I learned from that is everyone in this generation is in a coma. You do not know what's going on in people's lives. And I'm very involved in the community. When you see people with Shmata, Prada, Armani, and they just, you have no idea what people are going through, especially the last 10 years. Financial issues, medical issues, shalom bayis, divorce, deaths, you have no idea. So when people don't act the way you want them to, I'm speaking to myself, you don't know what's going on in some people's lives. So the negative word, judge them favorably. You don't have to give them a zets and call them on stuff. Just judge them favorably on every level. And this is all the stuff 2,000 years ago. I believe Hashem says you're not getting this. Okay. What's another thing that we do? Somebody buys something, and then you say, how much you pay? Oh, 80 bucks. Oh, why didn't you get that in Century 21? I know that's like $20 there. That's like the worst thing you could do to a Jew in the world, okay? To a person. Somebody bought something and they're so proud of the shirt, a belt, an item, and you telling them, oh, by the way, you could have got it for 20. What you did was you just diminished the value of that person. That's also robbing them from their simcha. You have no right to do that. If they can return it, okay, if it's possible. But if an item of clothing, maybe next time, or maybe a week or month later, say, by the way, I just want to share with you this Century 21. There's a place called Gaddafi's may rest in peace. There's other places, all right? But when you say that, you have to really do analysis. Why are you saying that? It's in your need of showing that you're superior, that you're smarter, that you're wittier, correct? So when you say that, another example, and it happens all the time. Come back from Acapulco, I tell someone I had the most amazing trip in Acapulco. Where did you stay? El Presidente. Why did you stay there? You should have gone to the La Coco Hotel. Why say such a thing? I'm in my zone. I'm telling you how great my trip was. Why share it? Maybe another time if I go back, you can say, by the way, by saying that, what you said, you just threw water on my parade, right? I come back from Israel. What did you fly? El Al. Why did you fly El Al? Why did you fly Del? It's over. It's finished. It's not productive. You understand? All this is negative words. You ruin that person's day. You ruin their vacation. You have no. That's all negative stuff. What's the point? Okay. Then you have what's called a mismatched personality, and I see it all the time. You say white, they say green. You say red, they say black. You say this, why? Just ignore them because that's the way they're wired. Does everyone follow? You ever meet people, and especially, by the way, not that I'm a dating coach, especially on a date, if you identify this kind of personality on a date or in life, don't argue with them. Walk away because they're not happy people. People who always have to argue with you, checking your, right? I'll say to someone, by the way, that was the best movie I ever saw. No, Steve, you're wrong. That wasn't. It's my opinion. That was the best Rugelach I ever had. Was Mars. No, you're wrong. The place in Haifa, I'm wrong. So in the old days, I was still like, now it's like, okay, you're right, I'm wrong, right? It's a personality defect. Don't argue, don't get upset, let it go, just say you're right, correct? All the negative words, let it go. As a Jewish girl sings in her song, Frozen, okay? Then there are people finding what's wrong. No matter what you tell them, they're trying to find something wrong in what you say or in that comment. Just let it go. But also by doing that to someone, it's also negative words. You follow? This goes on all the time. And then there are people who tell me, Steve, you lost weight. I've been losing weight my entire life. I probably weigh 15 pounds by now. I'm the same weight I've been. My jeans will show you. I have the same jeans I had in college. Steve, you lost a lot of weight. I'm the same weight. How is that productive? If someone gained weight, saying to someone, by the way, you gained weight, it's not very productive either, correct? All right? All those statements, words, those words just destroy people, destroys the community. And then the people who have the need to correct you, right? So, myself and Jody Gavin Samuels, we started an organization 10 years ago called the JICNY, Jewish International Connection. So we have today about 10,000 people from 50 countries. So I hear a lot of accents. God bless Jody. I don't know how she understands people. Emails on one-on-one, I could understand. Especially they come from Leeds, England. I don't know what they're saying. Anyway, so very often somebody will say something and somebody will correct their English. Okay? Firstly, I wish I spoke Spanish or Russian or Hebrew or spoke Bulgarian the way they speak English. There's a time and place. Okay, so maybe not in front of 50 people. Go over the person and say, by the way, what you should have said was this or that. I'm not saying in front of 50 people. What's the point? That's your need of, think about it, your grandparent. And by the way, when you go to Israel, that's what you sound like to 6 million Israelis, correct? You sound like that, right? Come watch the test. All right? If someone's telling a story, let them tell the story. You don't have to, all right, I'll tell a story. I was in Chicago, and there was this great kosher restaurant on Edmond Street. Actually, it wasn't on Edmond Street, it's on Wright Street. Okay, Chicago, it's on Wright Street. What difference does it make, right? What difference does it make? Is that right away, if you're smart, you know the person's insecure, the person needs to be right. So now it's like, thank you so much for pointing, it's on Edward Street, not Edmund Street, okay? But if it's a point of a halacha or something which really is important to someone, then I think you have a right to correct them publicly. But if someone's telling a story which has nothing to do with the thing that you're correcting, there's a negative word, and you have to really analyze why do you have this need to correct them, especially publicly. I was once at my friend Harry Skydell, and Harry Skydell is giving over Torah, and Harry knows, if he says something, he knows what he's saying, and this person was arguing with him about the Parsha. So Harry goes, okay, I hear, and Harry knew that the guy was wrong, but later on the guy said, I looked it up, you were right. Okay, there's a time and place. By the way, there's ways of communicating information to people. So if you hear something from someone which sounds out of whack, instead of saying you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're crazy, that's an interesting way of looking at things. I've never looked at it that way. Wow, I have to look at it that way, correct? It's just tough words or tough or soft words, correct? That's interesting. And you see people who are very refined, Torah people, that's how they'll say it. Not you're crazy, you're an idiot, out of your mind. Right? If Steve's a father, child says something. That's an interesting way of looking at that, Ezra or Menachem. It's not exactly the way mommy and daddy look at the world, but I'll look at that. Now don't do it my way, okay? All right, fine. Okay, after churches. Nicknames, okay? Nicknames, we don't give people nicknames. Hashem, our parents were inspired by Hashem to give names. You call people by their names. Unless, say, brothers and young guys will never say Steve. It's Steve Allah, Mom Allah, Shepalach, okay? But people have names. Calling people Shorty or this or that. People have names, you call them by their names. Okay, because you might be calling them a nickname, okay? But it might be perceived as negative. Call me by my name. Don't call me by my nickname. Right? Unless you're a parent or something. Okay. Then there are things that people do all the time. They negate family background. Oh, you're Spartic, so you must do it that way. Or you're Ashkenazi. Oh, you're from New Jersey. Oh, you're from the Five Towns. Oh, you're from Westchester. Oh, you're from the Upper West Side. Oh, you're from the Upper East Side. These are all ways of negating people, correct? We do it all the time. Are you from the Five Towns, so you must be, you know nothing about me. You know nothing about me. All right, all these stereotypes. Oh, I make jokes all the time with JSC and why I've been Persian community. Oh, you're Persian, but all those jokes might be a joke for me, but might not be a joke for the other person. When you say something about the Sparticness, or the Ashkenazi, or from the Five, these are all negative words. And that person walks away, you've insulted them, you hurt them. Right? And we wonder why, during the year, things don't go the way we want them to. We don't know if that person is holding something on us. You know, the whole year, Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, these are all words. All right, another thing. People put down people because of their professions. So I had this lovely, lovely guy. And let's say he's from Chicago, and he came to a certain organization on the Upper West Side. He met a girl, and he said he wanted to fly in to spend time with her, to see if the shit up would work. And I said to him, don't go to a hotel, you can stay in my apartment, save the money. He books a ticket, and Thursday, the girl doesn't call him back. He texts her, he emails her. And I said to him, I don't want to sound negative, but it doesn't sound very encouraging that you called her at work, phone, cell. She hasn't called you back. Steve, don't think badly about her. I said, okay, fine. Make a long story short, she never contacted him. And Friday night, she goes to a certain dinner on the Upper West Side, and the girl walks in. And the girl says to him, my girlfriend told me I shouldn't go out with you because you met me last Shabbos, and I'm making it too easy for you. So he came back like a wounded puppy dog, and I said to him, lose her number. This is not yet your wife, okay? What is she, 10 years old? That's really bad news. No, Steve, I really like her. Give her the benefit. Make a long story short, so they go out on Saturday night, and he comes back, okay? Very, very sad. So what's the matter? He goes, she made me feel really, really bad. So it was his mistake for going out with her at all, but okay, he liked her. Okay. So I said, what happened? So she goes out with him, and she says to him, what do you do? He says, I'm a chiropractor. She goes, a quack doctor? So, you know, that's not exactly a great way of inspiring a girl to like a guy. Here, the guy has invested his money, his life to become a chiropractor, and he's very proud of getting that, right? You're on a date or in life, and someone's doing something, and you poke a hole at it. That's not a way the guy is going to like you, the girl's going to like. And I see it all the time. You know, you go out with a guy or a girl, and I've seen it all the times. I'll say, I live in the West Side. The West Side. Nobody gets married. That's not very constructive. First, it's not even true. When people say you live in Manhattan, oh, it's an island of the Tuma. Well, I happen to like living in Manhattan, and you just discounted a lot of holy people, all right? And then people who forgot more Torah than learned 5 times. People, Manhattan, it's a Tuma. It's not very nice. First of all, it's looking over the entire island. Or you're from Brooklyn. Oh my God, stop it. These are all negative. You just destroyed my community, destroyed Manhattan, correct? So this guy, right? Someone says they're an attorney, and they handle certain kinds of litigation. Oh, so you're an ambulance chaser? Very good, shkarach. So that's going to definitely make him your husband, and that's definitely going to encourage him to be your friend. These are all negative words, correct? Not very good. Okay. All right. Then, those of you who are single, right? People need to hear this class right now. Someone sees you. Are you still single? Ouch. Not very good. Not helpful. Are you still single? Or they'll say, you never got married? So my stepfather told me, way to answer someone is, you know what, because you married the most special woman in the world. You could find me a woman like you found, I could have married her. Ooh, all right? Or if you find me a husband like your husband, or tell you what, no, I haven't found my sure, why don't you set me up? Right? And what you're doing is, in a passive-aggressive, Torah-dic way, you're throwing the ball back at them, and rather than they get upset and get all grimace, they're bad people, but they're just clues, right? And by the way, this is all the stuff while we're in Gulfs, all right? If someone says, then by the way, if a couple gets married, you have any kids yet? You don't know what's going on in their lives. My two brothers, and one brother, younger brother, used to live on the Upper West Side, and they used to live in a building where there were 7 Shomer Shabbos couples. And once a month, they would all get together, potluck, and every family would bring, family food to the Shabbos meal. Of 7 couples, 5 had children, and 2 did not have children, and 2 couples were married for more than 2-3 years. So again, I'm generalizing, but an observing couple, even a modern couple, who's married 2-3 years, not children, Houston, there's a issue, there's a problem. It's not because they're going for their PhD. So they would talk about things married couples talk about, children, the nannies, au pairs, typical conversation in the city, and diapers, and Costco versus, and guess what? My sister-in-law would notice 2 couples, the husbands, would be grabbing the wives' hands under the table, okay? So my sister-in-law went to one of the couples, and we have to really be sensitive to the couples. So, couples have to deal with it. That's part of life. No, we're Jews, okay? They're a safe zone. We don't discuss it in front of them, or you minimize it, correct? Also, I tell people all the time, you have some young guys, but no one listens. If you're dating someone and it's going well, or if it's not going, you don't have to put on Facebook in a relationship, out of relationship, all right? You get engaged, you put engaged, just do it. Like Rabbi Ezra Cohen just got married, no one knew, just do it, okay? No one has, your 50 friends don't have to know every nuance of your dating. You tell a Rebbetzin, you tell Rabbi Jacobs, you tell Deborah Kegel, you tell a married couple. It's not constructive, correct? Don't talk about it. There's no sense in talking about it. It's not constructive, right? Things are going well for you in business. It's no one's business. I'm not even talking about the Gates, Ayin Hara. It's no one's business. On Facebook, you're dating the most amazing guy in the world, amazing girl in the world. No one has to see your pictures walking down West Hampton Beach, okay? I just want to, is that Maya? I just want to dedicate the class retroactively to the memory of Maya's mom. What's her name? Miriam Bot? Binyamin. Okay, all the learners should be in her. Okay, so these are all negative words. Don't talk about it. Okay, get the information, go to Rabbi Rebbetzin, but you don't have to spray it out. That's too much conversation. Okay. Regionality, professions, okay? And again, why is all this important? Because words can destroy, words can build up. Now, having said all that, I know many, many people who would never say any negative words about other people. When it comes to themselves, they destroy themselves. That's also usher. It's also against the Torah. We say, love a Jew like yourself. Like Rabbi Greenman will say, if you don't love yourself, I don't want you to love me. Correct? Love someone like you love yourself. So very often, people are very, very insecure. What happens? They project all this negativity on someone else. Okay? You have to love yourself. We are human beings and we make mistakes. We are not Catholic. I can say it to this audience. We don't wear halos. We make mistakes. The biggest tzaddik in the world goes to Shomer Kippur, and he says, I made a mistake. All right? We make mistakes. We're human beings. We do the best that we can. 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. We make mistakes. Give yourself a break. Whenever you find yourself saying, I'm so stupid, I'm such an idiot, I always do that, there's a negative tape from childhood, from your parents, I don't know where, it's time to leave it. And this is also part of the Tisha B'Av energy. If you don't like yourself, and you don't have respect for yourself, you're not going to be a great Jew to someone else. There's no way someone who is very low self-esteem is going to be the kind of person who's going to build up other people. Just the opposite. Now you see people in the community who are just wonderful people to other people because they like themselves. People who are very much in pain, right, hurt other people because they're in pain. And this all starts with the words. All right, by the way, words. The Torah never uses negative language, right? 3,000 years ago, When it says it's not good for man to be alone, what's the lashon? What's the expression? What does it say? Lo tov. It doesn't say ra. It's euphemistic. It says lo tov. What do we learn from that? We learn from that the power of words, right? How was your day? Horrible, terrible, horrendous. How was your day? Challenging, not yet great, amazing, getting amazing, correct? When it says, but Noah, right? Noah brought the animals on the ark. What kind of animals was he told to bring on the ark? Someone? What's that? No, beside that, but it says not tame, it says lo tahor, correct? It's euphemistic, it doesn't say animals are unclean. A blind person, the Gemara, is called what? A sage? Nor someone who's full of light. Do you realize what this is? By changing your words, by changing the choice of your words changes everything for yourself and everyone else. How was your day? Not yet a millionaire. How was your date? Not yet Mrs. Eisenberg, okay? How was the food at the wedding? Not yet edible. Okay, okay? How was your interview? Not yet employed. By the way, this sounds cute, but the Torah, the only time the Torah uses negative words is when it's life and death, right? So too is the Torah teaching us. Words, the words that we use have a tremendous impact on our state, on our mood, and the way we treat people. This is all the sinas chinam. This is all the stuff that destroyed our people 2,000 years ago. And it starts with words, because what you articulate with your mouth becomes part of your actions as well. A smile, right? Not a smile, okay? So again, how was your day? Challenging. Now, how much more time do we have, Rabbi?
10 minutes.
Oh, okay. So when I'm in Israel, I don't feel heat. Everything's great. So last August, it was a very, very hot summer in Eretz Israel, like really hot. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. I have a birthday group in the old city. And I see this old Sephardi guy, and he has like a stick on his shoulder holding 2 pails of sand, okay? And, you know, I said, let me be a nice guy, be a Jew. So my brother said, hi, Hebrew, Shema, how are you? And the guy answers, Ani sababa, I am amazing, I am awesome. So I asked him, why are you awesome? So in Hebrew, my broken Hebrew, he says, I have the best job in the world. So my birthright's asking me, what's he saying? I said, I gotta answer this question. It's like too deep. So I said, brother, Achi, why do you have the best job in the world? So he says, I'll say this in English, okay, is that he came from a city called Baghdad in Iraq. You probably know that before World War I, 50% of Baghdad was Jewish. Very similar to Manhattan. The Jews were very, very wealthy. Jews were there for 2,000 years. They controlled the city. Very similar to Manhattan. And what happened was, within a year, 300,000 Iraqi Jews left with everything. They left behind. They left with the clothes in their back. Right? It took them 2,000. Here we're in Manhattan for 30 years, 50 years, 70 years. Look what we have, because everything was left behind. So I said, well, why do you have the best job in the world? He said, because who would have believed, you know, my grandparents were so wealthy in Baghdad that their grandchild would be rebuilding the Rova Yehudi. Imagine this. So I can't even wrap myself around this thing. It's so deep. He says, look at my job. Getting paid 15 shekels an hour, schlepping sand in the old city. He goes, I have the best job in the world. That my grandparents had only said their grandchild is now building Jewish homes in the old city in the Beis HaMikdash. Wow. So the birthwriters were asking me, I said, guys, I'll say this on the bus. This guy had more simcha, he had more happiness with his words than half the people in Manhattan. Look around the streets, see people look like zombies with amazing jobs. Story 1, story 2. So I was asked to speak in Berkeley for Mamana's program. So we're going to San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, this highway, and my friend from Palo Alto, he's a nice guy, he says to the toll collector, we're down the Easy Pass, how are you, Mr. Toll Collector Man? And the guy goes, I am awesome. So my friend says, how come? So no one's beeping, it's not New York. So he says, I have the best job in the world. So my friend goes, why is that? He goes, look at my job. I got people like you saying hello all day. I got Lady Gaga on my little Walkman on my iPad over here. I got people like you saying hello. I got the Golden Gate Bridge. I got the best job in the world. Life is awesome. So my friend says, Steve, This is unbelievable. I have this amazing job in Sun Microsystems, and I'm miserable because I'm making $380,000, and I was hoping to make $590,000, and I'm miserable. But look at this guy. His choice of words, awesome, right? And if you want to get a Manhattan person very upset, they ask you, how are you? Just answer, I'm amazing. You have a girlfriend? No. You have a great job? No. You got a rent control department on West End? That's a miracle? No. Why are you awesome? Because I'm alive. Because I have family, I have a place to live, right? So I just want to end with this. There was a very special guy who used to come here. His name was Les Nelkin. So Les Nelkin was an amazing guy, brilliant. Remember him, Rabbi Jacobs? Smart, good looking, from Great Neck, very accomplished Wall Street guy. And at 37, developed a very rare pediatric cancer. So he went to Sloan Kettering, Kettering, thank you, to see him with two friends, and he asked us, how are you? My two friends said, we're miserable. Why are you miserable? Oh my God, it's a July summer day, it's hot, it's disgusting outside. And he turned and he goes, I wish I could be outside. I wish I could be sweating outside. That changed my life. Very often, people ask someone, how are you? Oh, it's raining, it's freezing. It's go, thank God you're alive. Thank God you have an umbrella. Thank God we have, Anderson Cooper, who learned from them. Anderson Cooper was interviewed on CNN about the horrible New York winter that we had, right? So they asked him, what do you think about the horrible winter? And he said, it's called winter. He says in Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, that's what they have, Boston. He says, yes, thank God, I have a scarf, I have coat, it's even CNN, right? So anytime we go outside, it's hot, thank God you're alive. And if you don't get this, come with me, right? We'll go to Sloan Kettering, we'll go to the hospital, and we'll go visit all the people who are in oncology wards and tell them how hot it is outside, or it's raining outside, correct? The words that we use, right? Thank God you're alive, you have your health, places to live. Right? And life is challenging, but these are the words. How are you? You're amazing. Thank God. You're great. Sababa. Okay, so what did we learn today is that we have the power to change our whole state on planet Earth. We can destroy our lives. What Hashem gives us, what life gives us, we are not in control. But I believe so much of our lives we can destroy with how we process what happens. If you believe in Hashem, everything happens for a reason. If you don't believe in Hashem, then stuff happens. Whatever you're going to do to process it, it is what it is, what it is. So Rebbe Youngrice, God bless her, she always says, if you believe in Hashem, you have no questions. And if you don't believe in Hashem, you don't have any answers. I'll end with this. There's two words in the Hebrew language for why. How do you say why in Hebrew? Lama and Madua. In the Hebrew language, Rabbi Jacobs gives amazing classes in the Hebrew language. The words Lama Madua doesn't mean why, because a Jew never asks why, a human being never asks why. The word Lama is an acronym, two words, Lit Ma. To what purpose am I going through this? What did I learn from this, correct? It's not why, because if you believe in Hashem, we don't know why. And if you believe in the universe, things happen. What's the other word for why in Hebrew is? Madua. Ma, day of. What is the knowledge? What did I learn from that experience? And by the way, when you look at life that way, it changes everything around. So my bracha to all of us, including myself, is that we should choose soft words, kind words, words that build people up to ourselves, to other Jews. And we're living in a time when everyone needs a good word. If you see something, say something for good. So you see something, don't think it. You hear something good about someone, tell someone. And what's the difference between a good person and a great person? So I have a friend on the West Side, Michelle Salig. So Michelle Salig comes from a very, very amazing family. She got married a little bit later. And I said to Michelle, how are you ever going to decide who you're going to invite to your wedding? Because the parents, Baruch Hashem, have a house in Queens, in Florida, in Israel. She said, whoever calls me or emails me to wish me a mazel tov, I want them at my wedding. So what does that mean? Is that there's a social mazel tov, and then there's a mazel tov. What's a social mazel tov? You see someone at MGE, at Torah, on West End, oh, mazel tov, I just heard the good news. That's not real. That's a social mazel tov. That's because you're there. Or, sorry to bring up, my dad passed away when I was in high school, and a year later, people, their heads would go down like this. It's my mom, Phyllis, I'm so sorry, your husband died a year ago, okay? That's not a real, right? Judge people favorably, that's not real. A great person is someone, when you hear something good about someone, text them, emails them, calls them. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. If you can't make that call and you can't text them, I have to say it's a little bit of jealousy, all right? It's okay, I understand, push yourself. And Jewish people were clamoring now for good words to rebuild the Jewish community, rebuild the Jewish people, and it starts with ourselves. I cannot change the world, I can't change the Jewish people, but I believe we could just fix things ourselves. Iran, the government, UN, the Arabs, none of this could affect the Jewish people. Hashem's waiting for 2,000 years. It's enough already. It's enough for us to get our act together the way we treat each other with our words. So thank you very much. Any questions? How's Steve's jokes? Not yet funny. It's okay. Any questions?
Okay.
Okay.
You got it. Thank you. How's everyone doing? Great. Are you hungry? Do you feel hungry? No, good. So I would like to continue the program. I'd like to ask Debbie to come up. And, you know, I could read Debbie's official bio by way of introduction, but I'm not going to. She'll tell you, I think, a little bit about herself through her story. She's a social worker. She's getting her PhD. She has 11 biological children and 8 children by choice.
Wow.
Honestly, I would have to say, we started this program 3 years ago, where we started looking into folks who have gone through challenging circumstances and managed to just wrest the most good possible out of the worst set of circumstances that you could find. And I think that Debbie, like for my wife and I, sort of like occupies this place of like, she wins. Like, she has gone through quite a lot in her life. And the remarkable thing is really what she's done as a result, what she's turned that into, who she's become, how she's grown, and how she contributes and gives back despite this whole set of very difficult circumstances. And as such, I think she's a very, very inspiring person. So I'm turning over the MC position now to her, and she's going to give us some words of wisdom, and the program will continue. And I thank you all for being here. Debbie Akram.
Thank you all very much. It's really an incredible honor to be here. So first, I'd like to say thank you to all the speakers that I've heard, because they each brought a very unique perspective, which was great. I would like to answer Mr. Eisenberg, how am I feeling? Not yet full. So ask me by that like 10 o'clock, and I hope to say I am full. Right now I am not yet, but I'm definitely full of tremendously good feeling, and hope that events like this are going to make this the last Tisha B'Av that we spend mourning, and that next year Mr. Eisenberg should lead his 20th birthright trip with all of us in a fantastic Yom Tov in Yerushalayim, singing and dancing. Amen. Okay. I started out by thinking that I thought it would be kind of everybody for coming here today, because after all, this isn't like one of those events where we might hear like some fuzzy stories, and maybe stories that have a little bit of pain, and that we're going to kind of walk away, you know, feeling much better about ourselves and inspired. We heard a little bit of challenge, and we're going to rise to the occasion and give us that old fight. Today is the 9th day of the month of Av, and it's the saddest day of the Jewish calendar. It's the official day of mourning in our religion. Today is the day that the first and the second temples were destroyed, and it's the reason that we're still considered to be in exile. Historically, if you link general history to Jewish history, today's the day that World War I started. And World War I was supposed to be the war to end all of wars. But as we know, World War I was the direct start of World War II. World War II is the single most cataclysmic event in modern history. 33 million civilians died, and 17 million military personnel died. For those of us that are math-minded, and I am not, so look this up, it's 2.5% of the total world population was wiped out in World War II. That included 6 million Jews. That also included 1 million precious Jewish children who died. When we look at recent demographic numbers, we're told that today, 70 years after the destruction, we are now reaching the numbers of pre-Holocaust Jewry. It's taken us 70 years to come to the point where we are now considered that we're at baseline. So 70 years later, and we've now gotten up to where we were before the start of World War II. With an introduction like that, honestly, it's not silly to thank you all for coming here. The fact that you come here, and I thank you, you've earned it, and you deserve it. Because if you're going to come here today to an event that has to do with national, individual, and collective pain, to look at history, to look at events, it's to be willing to embrace a certain level of honesty, to be able to embrace a certain level of acceptance, and yes, to be able to embrace a certain level of pain. And many, many people have difficulty with that, and that is to be understood. So let's just start. I'm going to start from the beginning, and if I'm saying something that you know, just let's take it in, and if you don't know, it's time for great education. We'll start with a little bit of overview of this time period in our calendar. Every single summer, we have an official mourning period that begins with the fast that starts on the 17th of the month of Tammuz. So this is marked by a beginning of sadness and official mourning. We don't believe that we take haircuts anymore. We don't schedule weddings during that time. And for some people, they decide to curtail their entertainment out of respect for that official mourning period. And some people don't do movies. Some people don't do music. Some people do a combination. But there's a general sense that we have now entered into a period of sadness in our nation. The 3 weeks culminates in the 9 days. And the 9 days brings that level of mourning to a deeper level. We don't drink any wine or alcoholic beverages. We don't eat any meat. We continue into this process of mourning, and we prepare ourselves emotionally and physically for the saddest and most poignant day in our history, the 9th day of Av. As many of us know, in our tradition, there's a chapter that we read every single Shabbat in the Torah known as the Parsha. These chapters are there to teach us, to guide us, and they're among the myriad of texts that we use to help us in our everyday life. One of the basic lessons, as Mr. Eisenberg and our other speakers have alluded to, is that the temple was destroyed because of the notion of sinat chinam, the complete baseless hatred for one another. We see, we have seen, we continue to see, that our Father in heaven, like all parents, does not like when his children fight. We see that our Father in heaven is much happier when all of his kids get together and they play nicely with their toys, they share, they speak nicely to each other, they don't pull each other's hair, they don't throw food, and they all get along. 3 weeks ago, in the Parsha of the week, there was an unbelievably fascinating story about the prophet Bilam. And Bilam was approached by a guy named Balak, and he was asked to curse the Jews. As we're taught, Balak was extremely scared. He was very scared that the Jewish nation was approaching, and he didn't know what to do. So he went to Bilam, who was a very, very famous prophet, and he said, I want you to curse the Jewish people. Now, Bilam is a very interesting fellow in the history books. He was a prophet. He was a shaman. He was considered to be on the level of Moses for the outside world. He was very affable, and he was one unbelievable businessman. He had power, he had wisdom, and he had prophecy. And for the right price, Bilam would do whatever you asked him to do. You want me to bless people? I will bless people. You want me to curse people? No problem. I will curse your people. Bilam was a full-service prophet. Whatever you want, he'll give you. You pay it, and he delivers. What was the difference then between Balaam and Moses? Moses was also a prophet of tremendous power. The difference between Balaam and Moses was not their power, but their ethic. To be a prophet, to have that type of power within you, to have that ability to bless and to curse people, comes with an enormous amount of responsibility. Moses went to bat for Israel time and time and time again. Through all the trials and tribulations that the Jews had, Moses went up to bat for them. And Moses went to God and said, if you wipe out the people of Israel, I do not want to be part of this. Erase my name from the Bible with it and leave me out. Such was the loyalty that Moses had to his people. Moses was the ultimate shepherd, and we were his flock. When you look at Balaam, and perhaps Rabbi Jacobs has mentioned this in his Jewish learning class, his very name stems from two words. And the name of Balaam stems from the two words, Bali-am, without a nation. Balaam lacked one thing. He lacked loyalty and integrity. Responsibility and loyalty he had to no one. So he sold his prophetic wares to anybody who wanted it and didn't realize that his power was being used both for good and bad, and frankly, he didn't care. He wasn't loyal to family, to people, to nation, or to culture. And we learn that it is fundamentally important to be loyal to your people, to be loyal to your nation, to be loyal to your culture, to yourself, and to your family. A few weeks ago in the news, much of the tri-state area was very riveted by the story of the two prisoners who escaped in upstate New York. Is everybody familiar with that story? Okay. Two prisoners, David Sweat and Richard Matt, formed relationships and alliances within the prison walls to create an escape that frankly is movie worthy and most probably will be a movie in the coming years. It was unbelievable what they did. Truly incredible. If you read the detail and the meticulousness, the relationships that they formed, the plan that they made, and how they enacted this, it is truly unbelievable. Before the death of Richard Matt and before David Sweat was captured, CNN did an analysis of the situation in this way. CNN stated that prosecutors many, many times will use in-house testimony from people who are in jail, in order to help them nab a key witness. But here's the sticky part. Are you going to believe someone who's a seasoned criminal, a known liar, and who knows that every single word they're telling you is so that they can get less solitary confinement, better food, a microwave, and maybe some cable TV in their cell? Probably not, right? Right. If you're the jury, for any legal types here, how are you going to believe someone who is literally telling you what you want, and this is for real, this is honest truth, so they can get cable TV in their cell? Now think about it, if you're in an 8x8, 23 hours a day, cable TV that's a big commodity. That could be the difference between insanity and not insanity. They will say anything for that. Will you believe them? The truth is that prosecutors do this all the time. In-house witnesses are some of the most powerful witnesses that prosecutors have. And I'm with you, but juries believe them. This analogy is like the analogy of Balaam. He had the information, he had the power, but he didn't have the loyalty. The last point to keep in mind in the most unbelievable story of Balaam is that he surely did go through with what he set out to do, because Balaam, although he was quite the businessman, he knew he had to be a man of his word. And if he's supposed to get out there and curse the Jews, darn it, he's going to get out there and curse the Jews. But when he opened his mouth to curse the Jews, something very interesting happened. Instead of the curse that he was supposed to utter, the words, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. How pleasant are the tents of Jacob and the encampments of the Jewish nation. A total blessing came out of his mouth. When we go further into the Torah portions that encompass the 3 weeks, the last couple of weeks we learn that the Jewish nation, who had been sojourning in the desert for 40 years, and with the original generation having died out, encountered the nation of Midian, and they came to attack the Jews. Who was this nation of Midian? Midian was a nation that lived in the southern part of what is now modern Jordan, on the eastern side. The Jewish nation never, ever declared any hostility towards Midian. We had no problem with them. The Hebrew word Midian is etymologically related to the Hebrew word madan, which means to argue. And there is even a phrase in Hebrew that's called madan umeriva, which means to argue just because you want to argue. But there's no real reason that you want to argue. You just want to fight. Unprovoked, Midian decided they're not going to tolerate the Jewish people coming into this land. They don't want the Jews on this side of the Jordan River, and they're going to annihilate them before they even come. Moses was sent down to fight back and to obliterate Midian and destroy them. What is the lesson that we're supposed to learn from this war with Midian? What is the lesson that all of us, each of us individually and collectively, are supposed to take from this? After all, each chapter in the Torah is for us, and for us to learn and benefit from. According to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Midian was punished and destroyed because they started for no apparent reason. No provocation, no land dispute, no acrimony, no fight over animals, nothing. Just for baseless hatred. For the notion of sinat chinam did Midian start with us. Midian just did not tolerate the idea of Jews existentially. It just didn't fit into their worldview. And this, the Lubavitcher Rebbe concludes, is what we as a nation, both individually and collectively, have to fight. We all have to fight the Midian that is within us. We all have to fight the real and very real notion that we just want to fight with somebody, that we just want to start up. I don't like your prayer book. I don't like how you wear your hair. I don't like that you wear a purple shirt to Shabbat services, and I'm going to start up with you. This is what we need to fight today. Every single one of us has a piece of Midian in us, and that's the part that we need to take out and destroy. How many of us here can honestly say that we have never started up with anybody for no substantive reason? It's kind of reminiscent of the man who was shipwrecked on an island, and he was there for over 10 years by himself. And one day, by a sheer miracle, he got rescued. He proudly took the rescuers throughout the island. He showed them his fire pit. He showed them how he was distilling water. He showed them the harpoon he made for catching fish. And as he took them further and further to the island, he showed them a beautiful little hut. And they asked him, "What is that?" And he proudly said, "This is the synagogue I pray in every Shabbat." But right next to that beautiful little hut was an identical hut. The same height, same look, the same beauty. And the rescuers asked the castaway, "So what's this building?" And the castaway laughed and said, "Oh, that's the shul I will never set foot into." In recent history, and as I mentioned in the introduction, the Holocaust and World War II are our most recent catastrophic event. I am a first-generation child of Holocaust survivors, and I, along with many, many others, I can unequivocally state that my worldview and my perception of growing up and in this world was definitely cast with an ominous shadow created by the ashes of the crematoria. In my professional life and in my personal life, I see vestiges of Holocaust and post-Holocaust thinking every single day. the great revival of Jewish communities in America, the fierce to the death fight for the state of Israel, the mindset and the pulse of many Jews that we see each and every day worldwide is definitely fueled by the stories, by the photos, by the memories, and by the lore of that unbelievable great fire that consumed European and world Jewry. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who was imprisoned in Auschwitz. He wrote the most famous book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in this book, he gave a very fascinating approach to human suffering. With his professional training and with his imprisonment in Auschwitz, as he bore witness to things that nobody should see, he began to piece together and posited a three-part response to suffering. The first part was the prisoners always felt that they would be rescued. Even if it was minutes before they entered the gas chamber, there was the notion that the rescue would come now. Despite the fact that the prisoners saw many, many people being led to the gas chamber, despite the fact that they could see and smell the thick smoke coming out, despite the fact that they saw people die of starvation or physical torture at their feet, that notion that somehow they would be rescued still continued to burn in their mind. As time dragged on and the reality became more real, a level of apathy set in. And this apathy was needed to keep the prisoners sane. In order to survive long-term in that kind of horrible condition, defensively, the brain had to shut down. And no feeling, an apathetic feeling, had to come in and set. The third stage was when the prayed for but never thought would happen liberation came. How do you reintegrate? How do you now enjoy freedom? How do you now enjoy food? How do you now enjoy companionship? Viktor Frankl recounts how after the doors were open, how prisoners would go only to the gate and recoil back in fear. How it took coaxing to get them to step over that threshold, to literally step over the threshold of what had been their prison and understand that they were free to now walk, just walk straight. Viktor Frankl examined what's called logotherapy. Logotherapy is made up of two words, logos, a Greek word that means meaning, and therapy, a word that means the treatment of a condition, an illness, or a maladjustment. Dr. Frankl contrasted the use of logotherapy with traditional psychoanalysis, and he felt it's the only form of therapy that can help people achieve meaning. How did we achieve this meaning? First, you can perform a good deed. Secondly, you can experience something or someone. And thirdly, you can demonstrate an attitude towards human suffering. And in his final section of the book, he talks about the case for tragic optimism. Basically, what he's saying is that people will derive benefit from remaining unbelievably optimistic despite any harrowing situation that they face in life. Again, you can do a deed, you can experience something, or you can turn your own personal tragedy into something triumphant. And it is that last piece, the ability to take the most difficult and unbelievable situations in your life and turn them into something that is positive, that is the most helpful aspect of this therapy. This is the part of the therapy that helps people on the brink of suicide regain their footing and their desire to live. When you can give individuals a sense of purpose, when you can give individuals a chance to take that suffering and do something positive with it, when there is hope infused into a body and a soul, the person's will to live will be ignited. As I grew up in a Holocaust house, there was really no shortage of Holocaust literature to occupy my time and to read. I can't really say it was age appropriate when I read it, although thinking about it, I'm not quite sure which the correct age is to read about the systematic torture and annihilation of an entire people. Definitely not 10, but for sure maybe not 50 or 60 either. There's a book I recall, and I don't remember the author's name or the title of the book. I can see the picture in my mind. And there are a few passages from that book that have stayed with me that I want to share with you. This was a book about two Hungarian sisters who were deported to Auschwitz as teenagers, and they survived the war and rebuilt their lives. One sister who authored the book decided at some point that she absolutely could not eat the soup that they gave her every day. It tasted terrible. It smelled even worse. And it was laced with medicines and things intent on stopping a woman's reproductive cycle, and she absolutely could not tolerate to eat it. Now, not eating food in the concentration camp was punishable by death. That wasn't something that you messed with. So she didn't really know what to do. So one day she went to one of the farthest corners of the camp during mealtime with her bowl of soup or gruel. She decided she was going to dump it in a hole near the fence and then quickly go back and with her inmates. She got to the fence and looked up, and there was a man on the other side of the fence. There was a man who, she says, quote, saw things that no human eye should ever have seen. And he was positively skeletal. They spoke no words, but she began to feed him the soup with a spoon, and he ate it. This went on day after day after day for a few weeks. She would go to the place in the camp, the man would be there, they spoke no words, she fed him the soup, and she went back and rejoined her inmates. After a few weeks, the man disappeared. She had no idea what happened. But it was okay because sheer starvation had made her hungrier. She began to eat the soup that was offered her. Liberation came soon after that, and our author and our hero found herself in Paris, wandering aimlessly around trying to put the pieces back of her shattered life. But one day she was sitting on a park bench, feeding the pigeons some crumbs of bread. And all of a sudden a voice stood over her and said, "Were you in Auschwitz and Lager C? Did you used to feed soup to a man in the corner of the camp day after day for weeks?" She began to tremble violently at the mention of Auschwitz and Lager C and what she had done. The man said, "Don't be scared. I'm the man that you fed. And I wanted to thank you because that extra nourishment saved my life. I was about to die. The soup that you fed me every day for those weeks was enough to make me go on." The woman looked at him and said, "How did you know it was me?" And the man said, "You have the same look in your eyes as you feed the birds as when you fed me the soup." The man told her he was going to Australia. He wanted to get as far away from Europe as he humanly possibly can. They bid each other goodbye, and they never saw each other again. As Rabbi Jacob was kind enough to say, and as I am proud to say, I'm a proud mother. Some of my kids are here in the back. You can raise your hands, it's okay. Don't be too embarrassed. And my motherhood is a role that, and there's, whoa, one more hiding in the corner, Miriam, there you go. You thought you'd get away by hiding, you're not, okay. A role that has shaped and defined me, both personally and professionally, my whole life. In my life and in my challenges, the illness and death of my father at 19, a marriage that was emotionally abusive for more than 2 decades, financial ruin, public humiliation. I've always counted on my kids, one of the most fundamental blessings and support systems in my life. I was very alone in my first marriage and after. And I was blessed with an unbelievable group of children. And before I was blessed with a partner who now stands by me, my husband Moshe, Mr. Video Man. My children and I supported each other. And my children supported me with laughter, with CDs, with makeup lessons, with hugs, with incredible humor. And my children have made me aware of human potential that I myself never knew existed. 3 years ago this summer, my then 21-year-old son Baruch was diagnosed with brain cancer. I don't think there's really ever a good time for someone to be diagnosed with brain cancer, especially if you're the person who has the illness. But at that time, I was a single mom, I was working, I had 9 children at home, 2 married kids, and I was attending PhD classes at night. My son Baruch, my adult child, baby, my oldest son, was a beautiful, beautiful person. He had long, dark, gorgeous curls. He had soulful, big brown eyes and a mesmerizing voice that sang and composed music. He was an accomplished drummer, and he worked from the age of 16. He always had a car. I never asked where he got it or why. I was smart enough to do that. And he always had a great jingle in his pocket from the jobs that he worked. Despite the harrowing illness and the unbelievably harsh treatments that Baruch had to go through, and Baruch never read or perhaps even heard of Viktor Frankl, he instinctively embarked on a journey of giving throughout his illness. Baruch had failing eyesight and failing memory from the beginning of his diagnosis, and he was an unbelievable cook. So he asked me to text him the recipes that he had known but had forgotten. He took a picture of the text I sent him, he enlarged it, and he continued to make supper every night for the kids while I worked or went to school. One night I came home and I complimented Baruch on an incredibly delicious supper he made because there was absolutely nothing left. I told him how much the kids enjoyed it and what kind of great help that was to me. And with perfect innocence, Baruch looked at me and said, "What did I make? I can't even remember." Baruch was given a 90% chance of cure. And much to our utter astonishment, and devastation, fear, and anger, he relapsed. Moshe and I decided to get married a week later. The last Shabbos before I got married, I was laying in bed with the door open. And I saw Baruch coming up the stairs holding a tray. And he was limping, kind of swaying side to side. The effects of the tumor had affected his balance, and he had had emergency hip surgery due to complications and never really regained a walk. He came into my room with a tray that had cake, coffee, a little pitcher of cream and sugar, put it down on my bed, and with his big bright smile, he said, "You know, Mommy, you're a bride. You want to make the bride happy. I want you to have breakfast." And 6 months later, on a broiling August afternoon, when Baruch was undergoing yet another procedure, this time a bronchoscopy, because the tumor mitigated his ability to swallow the saliva that he naturally produced. The OR was freezing. And I went over to him and I said, "Baruch, how are you?" And he looked at me and said, "Mommy, I'm fine. The real question is, how are you?" You see, Baruch gave and gave and gave until the end. He gave of his precious limited time. He gave of his talents, and he gave of all the love that he possessed. Baruch died 2 years ago, Erev Rosh Hashanah. But the love and the legacy that he gave lives on. Baruch's legacy is the reason I started public speaking. My first public speech was at his Shloshim. The life and the lessons of Baruch spurned my social media page of Triumph from Tragedy. Because the story of Baruch has to live. And the story of giving through tragedy has to be told. I wanted to continue to tell people to accept each other and accept themselves, to continue to give and to live in the memory of my son. And I was pretty sure that I had finally begun to figure out this great tragedy of my life. Last December, one of my stepsons got married on the last night of Hanukkah. It was a beautiful wedding to a very beautiful girl. The lights of the Hanukkah candles mingled with the lights of the lanterns that the mother and father escort the bride and groom to their new home against a clear winter sky. The following day, I was at work, and I was talking to my oldest daughter, Chava, as she was at work, and we were counting all the details of the wedding. The flowers, the gowns, the colors, the beautiful bride's bouquet that the bride made herself of fresh flowers and antique pins, which was magnificent. Did I look thin? You know, the important things that you talk about after a wedding. My daughter Chava excused herself as her phone was ringing and told me her husband was on the phone. 10 minutes later, she called me. In a very tight-clipped, breathless tone of voice, she informed me that Batsheva, her 2-year-old, had been hit by a car outside their townhouse. Pray, Chava commanded. Call everyone you know and pray. This is serious. I was stunned. I got in my car and I instinctively drove towards my husband's work, my mind racing. Surgery, rehab, childcare for the other children, meals, extra household help, financial. I know this drill. We can do this. I know exactly what to do. Not even an hour later, I pulled into my husband's work and I called Chava to tell her that we were on our way. In a voice of incredible calm, Chava stated, "It's over. Batsheva has died." Baruch Dayan Emet. Blessed is the one who only gives truth. The blessing that you say when someone has passed. There was this horrible cacophonic scream that started to envelop me. Louder and louder and louder the scream got until I literally couldn't take it anymore. That scream belonged to me. And through the screaming, I heard this very soothing voice, this mantra over and over and over again. And the mantra said, "We're not mad. We will never look at you in a different way. We forgive you. We understand that this is what God's plan was, and we accept it. Please do not ever not speak to us. Please do not let your children not play with our children, for we understand that you had nothing to do with this." As I came to my senses, I realized I was hearing my daughter Chava on the phone. Chava was speaking to the man who had accidentally hit her child, her neighbor, and her friend. In the moment of unbelievable and undescribable grief, my daughter Chava chose not only to forgive, not only to accept, but to give. Batsheva was gone. But the emotional, the psychological, and even the physical well-being of another mother and father, whose lives were now completely entwined with my daughter and son-in-law forever, were at stake. Over and over and over again, we heard that Chava's words saved this family, saved 2 parents who were so overwrought with grief that Hatzalah was there to take the mother who was pregnant at the time away to the hospital, and to a father who was incoherent. When Bilam went to curse the nations, it came out in the blessing of how good are your people together, your encampments of Israel. The last verse in Eicha states, "Return us to you, Hashem, and we will return to you." Cancer, terrorism, accidents, mental illness, addiction, financial ruin, it doesn't matter. It doesn't pick whether you're Sephardi, Hasidish, modern, yeshivish, purple, rich, poor. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what label we have put on each other and on ourselves. Each and every one of us stands here by the grace and the glory of Hashem, and for no other reason. We learn in the ethics of our fathers that there were 10 miracles in the Beis HaMikdash. No matter how many people there were in the Beis HaMikdash, there was room for every single person to bow and worship Hashem. And we learn from the Emperor of Yerushalayim during the time of the Second Temple that 2,700,000 Jews came to the Beis HaMikdash during Pesach. How many people here today can picture 2.7 million people in the 1 square mile that encompasses the old city? Living, worshiping, sacrificing, eating, and sleeping. And there was no fighting. There was room for every single person. I want to retroactively dedicate today's talk to a young man named Andrew Ecker. Beautiful young man, 28 years old, who passed away last night on Tisha B'Av. A young man who had the same type of cancer my son did, who I was fortunate to spend a Shabbat in the hospital with him, my other son Yochanan, his mom, and me. We became very fast friends. I love Susan, I loved Andy, I love his family, and I hope that his soul has an aliyah and he rests in peace. And in the merit of Andy, I would like everybody here to take home the message of today. There's room for every single Jew in this world. It doesn't matter where they're from, and it doesn't matter what they look like. We've got room. There's room for all of it in our hearts. We can make the room, and we have to make the room. It is almost like we don't have the choice anymore. There are personal holocausts going on all over the world today. And each and every person in this room has the power to reach, to give, to talk, to hold hands, to soothe, to comfort, and to uplift. We have this ability. We have the ability to make the bracha of Bilam come to a reality. We have the ability to do the last pasuk of Eicha, Hadesh Yameni Kekedem, to take us back to that glory, to take us back to a world of peace, to take us back to a world of harmony, of love, of honesty, and of joy. Thank you for doing your part in coming here. Comments, questions? Yes.
How do you not get moved? How do you, like, what do you, does the voice exist, or does it, like, it's just like it just seems anger, like, even if you believe in God and meaning, like, how do you not get angry?
I get angry. I think it's a great question. I'm not making fun of your question at all. It's an excellent question. In my talks on acceptance, I'll just tell you briefly, I think people look at the word acceptance that you always have to accept something positive. I accept your job offer, I accept your promotion, I accept your marriage proposal, I accept your compliment. I'm very happy to accept what you're giving me. But true acceptance does not mean happiness. Acceptance is just something that you work on every single day of your life, and it is exactly what the word means. I accept it. But I also accept when I'm upset. And I accept when I cry, and I accept when I'm angry. And I look at that as part and parcel of the process that I am going through. And I think that anybody who goes through anything in their life and says, yeah, I'm fine, I'm great, is really not telling you deeply what's in their heart. I think we all want to be perceived as strong, but strength is in tears. If we read Tehillim, if you read David HaMelech, his entire life was unbelievably difficult, and he pours his heart out in Tehillim until he comes to a place of acceptance at the end. Eicha is also, it's very symphonic. And Yermia just pours his heart out. Anger is part of the process. Anger is fear. Sadness is part of the process. And to deny those feelings is not to heal. But I don't want to walk around angry all the time, because then it won and I didn't. I can't walk around angry all the time when I saw my son smiling throughout everything. And when I saw his face accepting it. And I can't walk around angry when I see my daughter interacting on a daily basis with her neighbor and playing with their kids and with such grace and dignity. I do this. I just hope that it takes. Yes.
You made a reference to something written in Victor Frankl's book that prisoners from the liberation camp, they were afraid to leave the camp. And in a way I understand it, because there was no knowing what was outside of the camp. There were many things happening outside. The problems, that tragedy did not start in the camp, start outside with the Nazis and non-Nazis, the Romanians and Poles and the like, and just over. And there were unfortunate incidents even after Poland.
Correct. What, so?
It's just like, it didn't end, it didn't really end, and unfortunately, what's happening in the world today.
Right, so if I think I understand the question that you're asking.
No, not even a question, it's more like a comment that it didn't really end completely, and we're still dealing with anti-Semitism and.
Okay.
Do you think?
Yeah.
It's going to go back. Do you think we're going to face another Holocaust? Something you think so?
Sure as hell hope not. I mean, I look at what my parents went through, and despite everything I've gone through, I still feel incredibly fortunate. I mean, my kids can walk safely. I have my choice of hundreds of restaurants to go to. I have a vibrant Jewish life here, so I definitely hope not. Having said that, I think that as I work with different people every day, I see just more individual Holocausts happening. And the way I look at it in my worldview, I think that like there's no atheists in a foxhole. There's no hatred in a Beaker Column room. My primary work is in addiction and trauma therapy, and I'm very vested in 12-step philosophy. I've never seen anybody not like anybody in a 12-step room, and I've never seen anybody not like anybody in a Beaker Column room. Somehow the walls just come tumbling down. And I think that it's events like this precisely that will prevent, I hope, some type of national cataclysmic event for Jews. Do I think that, Israel's a great place for us all to end up? Yeah, that's my personal opinion. I mean, it's, but I think today it's just kind of more important that we all reach out to that next person. There's a lot of suffering going on. There's a lot of beauty, a tremendous amount of beauty out there, and I see it and I take from it. But that's really where my thoughts on that happen. And the other thing I want to tell you is that, I see in a second, healing takes a long time. 70 years may seem like a while, but it's really not. Healing is a process, and I think that the post-Holocaust generation that was very intent on just rebuilding, to build and get the numbers back and stability and money, and the psychological advancements that we have and the services were just not as readily available to that generation. And so I think we continue the work that they started, and we're just a continuation. Yes?
How do you, like, I have someone in my life who got basically similar, you're somewhat collective, suffers, class, many of the things. The person has a lot of anger about what he has to suffer and cope with, and it's someone that I'm going to suffer too. So how do you help someone overcome it and see things from a more positive lane, and how do you change that outlook?
So I think that the way you change that outlook first is to absolutely not try to change them of their anger. They have every single right in the world to be angry. To suffer with a physical illness, in my mind, is one of the worst challenges that anybody can have, because your exact daily being is assaulted. If anybody here has ever looked up Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy to self-actualization, the first basic one is your physical safety, the first two. And when you have a physical illness, that is not a given anymore. Your physical safety is now very, very much threatened and compromised, and you're very aware of it on a daily basis. So I think for somebody like that, the best thing to do is to validate it. Yes, you're angry. You have a right to be angry. You have a right to be upset. You have a right to be scared out of your mind. I think support groups for people that are going through something like that are extremely valuable. And if you'd like, after the program, I have a name for your referral of somebody who specializes in this that can definitely help. But by no means would I ever mitigate someone's feelings. I mean, if my son would have thrown vases across the room, I would have been all too happy to go out and buy him hundreds of vases to throw against the room. I would have been more than understanding. It's absolutely every single act in your life, going to the bathroom, eating, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, is just sometimes taken away from you, and it's a horror. It's really a horror show. So I'll give you a name afterwards. Sure. Thank you. It's my pleasure right now to introduce a fellow Passaicer. I'm from Passaic, and Passaic's got some fantastic, wonderful people, like Rabbi Jacobs and like our next speaker. Debbie Isaacman at some points, maybe even now, is a neighbor? Yeah?
Pretty close, same block.
Pretty close. She has an unbelievable story to tell. She's a wonderful, upbeat, happy, fabulous woman that I'm proud to call a friend. Debbie Isaacman.
I'm going to start off by dedicating this talk to an uncle of mine that passed away just a couple of months ago. It was my mom's brother, and he was a very quiet, gentle person. He didn't speak very much, and a lot of stories started coming out after he passed away of what a mensch he was and how gentle he was. And he didn't have like the most amazing job or any of that type of thing, but he loved his kids and his grandkids. And if you can leave this world knowing that you left a legacy for your children and your grandchildren, then I think you made an incredible connection and a legacy that will stay for a very long time, as opposed to people who may be spending a lot of time earning money and creating status and honor and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, most people are not going to say, I wish I would have spent more time in the office. I didn't have the relationship with my family or my children, because you're really not taking very much of that with you at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you're not even taking a pair of socks with you. So the relationships and the connections and how you are in the world, that is what counts. And I would like to dedicate it to my uncle as a comfort and a strength to my mother and his kids and grandkids. I want to tell you a story. I like telling stories. I'm a teacher, so stories that work really well and they're kind of cool. If it wasn't a fast day, I may have brought some stuff in to do like the experiential stuff, but I just thought I'd spare you because it's related to food, and so we're gonna just have to imagine. Okay, so there's a young lady, and she's married. She's got a couple of kids. She's having a tough time. Life stuff, marriage stuff, financial stuff, just all the stuff sort of that Debbie kind of pointed at. And she goes to her mom to get advice and support and all that kind of stuff, which is, by the way, an excellent person to go to. I'm extremely, extremely grateful and lucky to have a mother that I have been able to go to and has supported and held my hand and been my strength in everything that I've done, and her advice and her belief in me has been unbelievable. So I would say, like, going to your mom, if she's anything like mine, great idea. So this lady comes to her mom and she starts talking about some of her stuff, and her mom puts out 3 different pots of water. In one pot of water, she puts some carrots. In one pot, she puts some eggs. And in one pot, there's just boiling water, just plain boiling water. And they're busy chatting and they're talking about different challenges and different issues. And at the end of about 15 or 20 minutes or so, she says, "Ma, what's going on with the stuff on the stove there? It may burn over, you better go check on it." And she said, "Oh yeah, forgot about that." So they go off into the kitchen and they take the first pot that has the carrot, of the stove. And she says, what do you see? She said, that's a very smushy carrot. She said, but how did that carrot go in? Before we put that carrot in the hot water, it was hard. It was able to handle and do stuff. It wasn't breaking so easy. We put it in that hot water and look what happened. It got smushed. It's all soft and it doesn't work as well as it did before. So that's one way of looking at adversity, is when adversity hits, the hot water being adversity, sometimes we crumble and we break down and it's hard and we become soft and we don't cope well. The second one was the egg. The egg is now went in, kind of very easy, flowy kind of thing. You can feel the liquid in there and it's just like flowing from one end to the other. It's got a little bit of a shell, but it's not difficult to get past the shell. It'll break pretty easily. Put it in the hot water and it comes out hard, really hard. Now you've got two things, because now you've got the shell, and now you've got to get past the shell to the other part that's now extremely hard. So what happens is sometimes when we face with adversity and difficulties, we never ever want to feel that pain again. That pain is so hard that we harden ourselves. We put a wall up, we make your heart hard, and you just don't feel, because it's too hard to feel. And you want to protect yourselves. Our minds are so brilliant that we are able to protect ourselves, and we know how to do that. Sometimes it's effective and sometimes not always. But often that's what we do. We just do this so that we don't feel pain again. And no one can come close to us unless you let that wall down a little bit, or you allow that hardness to not be as hard anymore. And then you get to the last cup, the last thing of water. There was nothing in it. And the mom decides to put in a couple of coffee beans. And in an instant, the entire room is smelling amazing. I'm sorry for doing this, but we're going to have coffee soon. The aroma and the smell and the idea of just having that cup of coffee is just the best thing. But how did the coffee get to be the coffee? It was through the water. It didn't get soft and it didn't get hard. It was through the water that you get your cup of coffee. That aroma and that coffee happens because it exactly hits that very, very intense water and boiled to the point that it became coffee. So that's another way that we can look at adversity and people that have been able to do that. Not all of us can. We all have the potential to, but not all of us can. One of my hobbies, a lot of people collect a lot of stuff, and they always like to show their stuff off that they collect. I collect inspirational people. That's my thing. I read stories, I read articles, I read quotes, and I keep them close to me all the time, because that to me is looking at people that have risen above and made coffee out of something that a lot of other people couldn't do. So what I'd like to do is share a little bit of some of my inspirational people with you, because like all good collectors, you want everybody to share how amazing your collection is. So the first person I'd like to talk about is Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve, some people may know, some people may not know. I was actually speaking at a camp a little while ago, and I mentioned Christopher Reeve, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. They didn't know who he was, and I was like, how can you not know Christopher Reeve? He's from Superman. And they're like, huh? You know, because that's changed so much. But from a man who had absolutely everything. He had wealth, he had family, he had an acting career, he had everything. And in 1 minute, everything was taken away from him. He was in a very, very bad accident on a horse. The horse threw him over and he broke his spine, and he became paralyzed from the neck down. Literally, he was on a respirator for quite a long time. And when his mother was told about it, she said, "You wouldn't want to live like this. Just take the ventilator off. Just let him go." And his wife said, "No, that's not what he would want. I'm his wife. I have say." And he would, even if he cannot speak, even if he cannot do anything, he can watch his kids grow up, and he's going to want to do that. He's going to want to watch his kids, and he's going to want to be part of the world in whatever way he can. And he did. He wrote a book called Still Me, which was, I'm still who I am. I am exactly who I am. I look different. I can't do the same things. But instead of being active with his kids, he was now being with his kids. There was no other activity around other than, here is who I am, and this is the way I'm connecting to you. And he gives a a quote on what a hero is. And I love this because it applies to so many people. A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. So you don't have to be anybody special because stuff's going to happen. That hot water is going to affect every single person at some point or another. But what you choose to do with it, how you become a hero, that's up to you. The next person I want to speak about is Nelson Mandela. And I feel that I have to, based on the fact that I'm South African and, you know, it just comes with me. So they recently had Nelson Mandela Day in South Africa about a week or two ago. It's on his birthday every year. Communities go all over and do 67 minutes of some sort of charity, good, help, whatever it is. So his legacy also continues to live now that he's passed away. But the thing that strikes me as incredible about this man is that he was put in jail for 27 years by people who hated him, and he didn't give that hate back. He was able to take people and change their way of thinking by being dignified, by being a man of character, by being what he believed to be the right thing and stood by it. And when he left jail, he said he left his anger and his bitterness behind because he said, I would still be in jail if I carried that with me. I would no longer physically be in jail, but emotionally and mentally, I will still be in jail if I do not give up the anger and the bitterness and everything that's happened to me. And my mom was telling me recently that she was reading a story of an Afrikaans lady who was the exact opposite of what Black people were, and there was a lot of animosity. And she landed up working for him when he left jail. And she has now written a book about her experience about working with him and how absolutely phenomenal this human being is and how devastated she was by his death. And this is someone who was trained to hate all Black people, and he was able to show her a different way of doing it. And I think without him coming out the way he did with the level of forgiveness and putting hope in place, I don't think the country could have gone through the transition that it did without his leadership. And I have a huge amount of respect for him. The next person that I want to speak about is a gentleman who was on a show called Dancing with the Stars. I don't know if anyone watches it, but it's one of my favorite shows. They take people that are professional dancers together with celebrities and they train them in ballroom dancing. And they usually have on the show at least one or two people that have been through stuff and they land up on that dance floor. And one of the people was a man by the name of J.R. Martinez. He had been in Iraq. He had been deployed there. I don't think it was Iraq or Afghanistan. I think it was Iraq. A couple of months after he was there, he was involved in a landmine. He was in bad shape. He was scarred all over his body and not so easy to look at. And he landed up coming on Dancing with the Stars, which is huge because most people are looking at you in a very physical way. And with an incredible amounts of charisma, he came on that dance floor. He's Latin, so he knew how to move. And he landed up winning, not because people felt sorry for him, because he was fantastic. And I was reading something and he said when he was in a really bad way, he kept asking the question, why? Why me? I was so young, I'm 19, he was good looking, he had everything going for him. Why? And he couldn't come up with a why. And one day a nurse said to him, you know, we've got another guy that's just come in. I think it would be a good idea for you to come and chat to him a little bit. You might be able to help him a little bit. And he walked into the room and it was completely dark and this guy didn't really even want to look at him. And he sat and he spoke to him for like 40 minutes. And by the time he left, there was a little bit of light, the windows had opened slightly, and he left the room. He said, I know now why, because this is what I need to be doing. I have gone through this in order that I can do this for other people, that I can help and give chizuk to other people. I'm going to share a couple more we'll try to do them briefly because there's other stuff coming. A man by the name of Dan Caro, who had, at 2 years old, was burned severely and decided to become a drummer even though he never had any hands, which is kind of quite a feat. And he figured out how to do that. How did he figure out how to do that? Because he wanted to tie his shoes. And he had a hard time doing that based on the fact that he didn't have strength in his hands and his muscles. And every day for a number of years, he would try and tie his shoes. And at the age of 12, he went down, like he did every day, and went to tie his shoes, and this time it worked. He had the strength and he was able to do it, and he had the use of a thumb that he had some surgery on, and he's like, okay, if I can tie my shoes, what's next? Maybe I'll learn how to drum. And he did. And he's from New Orleans. He's a jazz drummer, and he's now a speaker, and he has a book out, and he's really phenomenal person. And his thing is, you know, people make excuses for a lot of things, and he has every right to make every excuse under the book for his life being what it is. And he said, but why would I do that? My life is such a blessing. It would be an insult to God and my family to complain about my life. And I'm looking at this man and I'm going, oh my gosh, you sure did make a major cup of coffee out of that hot water. And he's, Baruch Hashem, he got married looking the way he does, which is saying something about who he is and his personality. Okay, let's move on to a couple of other people that I think are fantastic and a little closer to home. We have a lot of history going into the Holocaust, and that's one of the things that we remember here. How people got through the tragedy and the trauma of watching people around them die, and the suffering and the pain that they had. And I read a story, and it really had a major impact on me. And it was a group of Hasidim, and they'd been taken to the gas chambers, and the Nazi had told them to, you know, get ready because they were going into the gas chambers. And one of them started singing and dancing, and he pulled other people into the group, and they all started dancing together and singing a song called Ashreinu. And this man, Nazi person, looked at them and said, what are you doing? Do you not know that you are just about to go and die? And they said, yeah, we do. But you see, you don't get it. Our bodies die, our soul, our neshama, our spirit, that doesn't die. That's eternal. So you can do whatever you want to our body, but we have to stay. And he said, he was like so taken aback. He said, you'll live another day. And they survived. I'm not sure, you know, what the end of the story was, but they survived based on that. And I love the idea that no matter what happens to your body, what happens to you physically, if you've been imprisoned in whatever way, that your spirit and your soul soar to a completely different level. And if you can tap into that, like the people that I've just mentioned have. Another one of my heroes is Rachel Frankel, who lost her son in the 3 boys that were killed last summer. And this is a lady who has united Israel and all different people from all walks of life, like Debbie was saying, that there's a place for everybody, and she was able to unite people in a way that we're praying and doing acts of kindness. And you know, it's been a year later now, and she's like, she says, when I'm sad, but I'm not my sadness. I see that there's beauty in the world, and that there was beauty that was created because of my son. And the ability to do that and to unite people in that way and to be such a strong voice is so incredibly powerful. The thing that I find amazing is, how did these people do this? How was it that they were able to take that boiling water and make that cup of coffee? And one of the answers that I saw that I really liked was a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. He had been through the Holocaust. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he said, if there is some form of meaning in your life, you will hang on, no matter what that meaning is. And for everybody, that's different. And I'm going to read a quote because this is one of my favorites. Everything can be taken from a man, the last of the human's freedom, to choose one attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So we have choices. And the choices we make depend on what we're going to do with the stuff that's thrown at us. I had a little bit of hot water thrown at me. I was kind of born with it. I have this rather interesting, exotic kind of look with the short arm thing going on. That's kind of what I call it. So I was born with what's called a congenital birth defect, which sounds really fancy. It just means it's something I was born with. I don't like the medical terminology. The medical terminology doesn't lie well with me. I'm not a defect. My arms are not defective. When you buy something, a technological advice doesn't work. You take it back to the store, you say this is defective, and they give you a new one. I'm not taking my arms back, so they're not defective. They work. So the deal is that I have a bone missing in both of my arms, and the doctor, when I was born, told my mom, if you're going to miss a bone, the one you're missing, that's the one to miss. You did a good job. If you're going to miss one, yours is the right one to miss. The radius stops just short of your elbow, and your ulnar goes into your elbow. So the fact that it's a radius means I can move my arms up and down and I can do everything with them. But the look is just a shorter look. It means that from my elbow down to here is a much shorter forearm, and I have some sort of finger issues. My thumb is a little smaller, and my baby finger is a little smaller. The baby's cute, you know, it's supposed to be cute, and you don't use it that much, but the thumb is very important. Without the thumb, you can't really hold on to things very easily. And when I was very, very young, I learned how to do things in a different way that weren't the same as everybody else, but I figured out how to do it. I didn't even realize I was doing stuff that was different until people said, how come you're doing it that way? And I'm like, what? And they were like, that, why don't you pick it up like that? And I'm like, no, because this is how I pick it up. So I did an experiment with some of the kids in my class, and I said to them, I want you to pick up your pencil, but don't use your thumb. You can actually try it out. You pretend like you're picking up something. But don't use your thumb. It feels kind of weird. Yeah? It feels kind of weird. I learned how to pick up stuff with these two fingers, like this. And I managed it just fine. Also, never learned how to crawl because it was too hard to have my hands all the way down. I didn't have enough strength. But I needed to explore. I needed to get places, you know, like a kid's got places to go and people to see you. You figure out how to be on the move. So I learned my mom tells me I moved around on my tushy, bounced around on my tushy. And I figured out how to get from place to place doing that, which may explain why I have absolutely no concept of direction, because apparently when you learn how to crawl, you figure out space and time around you, and because I didn't do that, I have no concept of direction. I'd like to think that's a good excuse to say why. So growing up was not easy. Looking different, very, very obviously different as a child is extremely, extremely difficult. Kids aren't always the nicest. When you stand out, when you have something that doesn't fit in, you become very different and you feel it. And it was difficult. It was difficult. I didn't have a ton of friends. I had a few friends, but I struggled. I struggled, and there were surgeries. There was a lot of other stuff that went on that made me quite an anxious child and scared of a lot of different things, and believe it or not, fairly shy. When most people, when I speak to them, say, there's no way you were ever shy. So when I was comfortable, I wasn't shy. If I was uncomfortable, I was a little shy. So there were a couple of pity parties and feeling sorry for myself and, you know, trying to figure out how to make something different. And a number of years ago, I went on a course. And something amazing happened there. The person who was one of the facilitators said something to me that really jarred me. He said to me, "You're selfish." And I looked at him and I'm like, huh? And I was kind of angry because he didn't really know anything about me or my life or anything that I've been through. And I needed to tell him. And he continued to explain to me, and then it kind of made more sense. He said, you've got something to give. You have a gift that other people may not have, and you're choosing not to use it, and you're choosing not to share it with people that you can be giving truth to, and inspiration to, and help people in challenging situations, and you're choosing not to do that. So you're being selfish because you're taking that away from people that could be gaining from you. I was like, gosh, never heard someone say that to me in that way, quite like that. It was like, hey, I do have something to give. Yeah, maybe this is something. And then he said something else that was equally impressive to me. He said, the universe doesn't make mistakes. I just translated that to Hashem. Hashem doesn't make mistakes. You're in this body for a reason, and you're supposed to be doing something in this body. This can be your greatest gift if you choose for it to be, but it can be something that's being your worst thing, which is what I had made up with it. And that kind of shifted my thinking in the way I viewed things. And it gave me a lot of empowerment to say, there was a reason for this. And there is something I can do with it. And I need to do that. One of my big things is body image, and speaking to young women and men as well, who have body image issues, because that's not who you are. You are who you have inside of you, who you choose to become, and what you put into yourself. All the other stuff, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to last. By the time you're 95, you're not going to look stunning anymore, and you may not be who you were when you were 19 or 20, but who you became is who you take with you and who you choose to do around you. Now, the interesting thing about me is the fact that I work as a teacher in a school, and the very, very first question that a kid will ask you, because they're not shy, and it's so cool that they're curious, they want to know. They're not doing it out of chutzpah, they're not doing it to hurt you, they just want to know. So they're like, how come your hands are so small? And it starts from when they're like little, and until they know me, they will ask it, and they ask it a couple of times sometimes because they like the story. And I try and explain it to you in a way that they will understand it. And I let them come and look at my arm, and I show them where their bone is, where my bone isn't, and so that they're not scared. And it's not something that they need to freak out about when you see someone who's a little bit different, but they're the same as you. So what happens is parents often freak out. Parents go, don't ask, shh. But like, you can hear the whole thing going on. It's like really funny. And sometimes I can see adults staring at me, kids staring at me, and I want to say, just come and ask me what you want to do instead of staring at me like I'm a moron. Like, just come and ask me, how did you get like that? What happened to you? And I'd be so happy to explain it to you. But I'd prefer that you just didn't stare at me like I just don't fit in. That hurts, still hurts now when you see people staring at you. And the interesting thing is, though, that once you do tell kids what it is, it becomes a complete non-issue. Because if you love kids and you warm and they feel that, they don't care what you look like. It can be black, white, big, thin, fat, purple, green. You show them love and they will give it straight back at you because they see way beyond what you're presenting as. They see who you are here. And that's why it's so amazing. Like, my favorite one of all the how come your arms are so small thing was a kid that said, he was, I think, in preschool, kindergarten, he said, you're big, but your hands are small. So he was figuring out, you're an adult, you're speaking to one of the teachers that are here. So I see that you're an adult, but your hands don't look like an adult hand. So you're big, but your hands are small. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am big and my hands are small. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And so what I try to do is to try to put people at ease as much as I can. I try to start speaking very quickly when I meet people so that you get a notion of the fact that even though I physically look different, my mind's mostly intact. Every once in a while we have some nutty phases, but generally speaking, the intelligence is there because people often have the myth or the stereotype is someone who looks different might not be intellectually all there. And in many ways, I think I've tried to overprove that. And in many ways, that's maybe why I started talking at a very young age and talking a lot to subconsciously to enable people to see that there was a person there. So one of the things is I listened to a lady who had been burned very badly, and she had to wear a suit, a burn suit, and it really looked horrendous. And she would see people staring at her, which people would do. And she said something, she just wanted to turn around to people and say, it's just me in there. And so many times, I love that because that's what I want to say. It's just me in there. It's just me. It's me who loves reading and who loves children and who loves teaching and who loves talking and loves collecting inspirational people. It's me who looks different, but it's a part of me, but it's not who I am. There's also the part of me that has no concept of time, space, procrastination, organization. It's me. The good stuff, the bad stuff, and everything in between, just like everybody else. Except that I don't look like everybody else, and I have a gift that I can now use in a way to help people to see deeper than just what's out there on a physical level. I want to bless everybody in this room that you should be able to get in touch with the light that you have inside of you, because every single person does. And that whatever boiling water gets thrown at you in any place in your life, you figure out how to make the best cup of coffee out of it. Thank you so much. Questions, comments?
Thank you. Did it affect your relationship with God one way or the other when you were dealing with this?
Big time. It's an up and down cycle all the time. There were times where I was so angry. There were times that were like, how could you do this to me? I can't believe that a good God would do this. When it comes to being able to have relationships and have a spouse and things like that, it's like, you see, it's because of this, because you made me like this. They definitely, it comes and goes in sweeps. Sometimes I'm better than others, sometimes it gets hold of me. It depends on my mood and what's going on in my life that it comes up and down, but there's a big mixture of a lot of complicated other things. But I think the thing that helped was when this person said to me, you have a mission, you have a tough kid, there's something you are meant to be doing with this, and if you can find the meaning, like Viktor Frankl says, you find the meaning in something, despite the pain and suffering, there's something that you can work on in a way. But the anger is still there and comes out fairly frequently. But we try and manage it with ups and downs.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Okay, we're going to take a break for about 20 minutes. We're going to conclude the evening with a virtual panel. We have, well, actually, not everyone's virtual. That's Sari Singer over there in the back, and she's going to be leading us in a panel of three amazing stories, all three women who are victims of terror. Two of them are in different states, which is why we're going to be piping them in here, and it's bound to be a fascinating discussion. After that, we are going to have the evening service for those who want to do that, and then we have a break the fast meal outside after that. So enjoy your 20 minutes, and we'll be back here shortly. Nope. Okay, we're stopping this broadcast, and we're going to start a brand new one in the same place in about 10 minutes.